Tension on deck.
Ooh, good afternoon. Hey, look, we have a special guest tonight. Hey, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good, good. Oh, the volume in the background. How are you? Yeah, we got Marlon Bethel, Finest Unfiltered Family, joining us today. Special post-election edition. But later on, in the second half, we're going to be talking about an issue or an order that Mayor Adams has put out once again regarding those that were terminated under the vaccine mandate. So obviously that hits home with Marlon. So we're going to get his take on that. But we figured bring him in early instead of leaving him in the background, and have him join us for this political discussion as we talk about everything that happened yesterday, leading up to yesterday. And, you know, as everybody knows now, we have Mayor-elect Zohan Mamdani, who won the majority vote in New York City. And, you know, he beat our candidate. You know, we endorsed Curtis Sliwa. We thought that he was best candidate for the job. We thought that he had the best platform. Cuomo didn't really have any platform, and we'll speak a lot tonight about some of Mamdani's platform, especially how it is, you know, involves law enforcement and the NYPD. But listen, we stuck to our guns. We stayed behind our candidate, what we thought, when everybody in the world seemed to be literally going against Curtis and turning on Curtis and turning the Republican Party turning on itself. It was really strange to see, disheartening to see how the Republican Party just fell apart and pushed for a Democrat running on an independent line after he was rejected by the Democratic Party. So, you know, Rob, what were you thinking last night?
I was extremely disappointed from what I saw. You know, a lot on social media. You had, you know, Curtis walking around. There were large groups all following him. And I really felt that he had that base. Like he was out, we know he was out there in the streets. I didn't see, we never saw Cuomo out on the streets. Mamdani was, you know, walking around, but, you know, all right. And that seemed to end after the second debate from what I saw. And now all of a sudden, you know, Curtis was out there. He was hitting the streets. You know, we know he was working 20 hours a day. He was putting his heart and soul into it. And I truthfully felt that there was going to be a large amount of people, like the secret voters, the ones that didn't answer the polls, the ones that, you know, were behind him, particularly in Staten Island and the Bronx, and that he was going to pull through. That was my thought. Now, when they called it, like, you know, I was watching Newsmax, they called it right away, and I was shocked because, you know, all right, they get the dump of the you know, early voting, but all the rest of the results weren't in. We all know as police officers, right, when we do election duty, it doesn't happen within, you know, minutes after, you know, 2100 hours when the polls close. So I was just blown away. I was sad because, like I've said in the past, like what I even said to Curtis on when we interviewed him, you know, we put our hearts and soul in that. You know, we joined the police department, and now we just feel it's going to get destroyed. The whole city's going to get destroyed. So, Marlon, what do you think, brother?
Yeah. Afternoon chat. Afternoon, guys. Yeah, I'll be driving the executives tonight. So if we're headed your way to give you a scratch, I'll make sure to send you a text message beforehand. But
let them know where we're going, Marlon. Make sure they're on point.
Make sure you get a heads up. Call the commands ahead of time.
Yeah. But I said last night I was surprised at how quickly it happened because I went to move the car and, you know, I came back and the room, the oxygen had been sucked out the room. It was very disappointing, you know. In fact, I'm still shocked that Curtis conceded so quickly. But I mean, it is what it is when you see it's 7%, and that in itself is kind of shocking too. That he didn't even win any parts of Staten Island. But I think he should be commended for having run a great campaign. And certainly when I was there I was in Bay Ridge 2 days ago when he gave his final, yesterday, the day before yesterday, when he gave his final rally, one of his final rallies, and there's a lot of energy there. So I think he ran a great campaign, but unfortunately, it wasn't his turn this time.
Yeah, I mean, we were out there. We were stomping the grounds and trying, to help it out and get the word out. And I agree with you. Everybody you talk to, I mean, maybe it's our circles or whatever, but everybody we talked to, was pro Curtis, and we kept trying to get the word out. Listen, everybody was saying, I want to vote for Curtis, but just stop with the but, vote with your heart, vote with your mind. And it was really, you say, when you went to move your car and you came back in, I just popped up that picture of us, last night at the watch party. Is John, myself, and Marlon at the watch party last night in the city. And yeah, when it came out so fast, and you could tell right away how bad the numbers were. And it wasn't a bad turnout. It was a record turnout. Over 1 million people voted for Mondami. He got over 50%. So all of those who say Curtis was the spoiler, and even if you say that, Cuomo was the spoiler, if you put both of their votes together 100%, you're not going to get more than Mondami got. Mondami had over 50%. People are still trying to spin it. Well, if he would have dropped out, more people would have went to the polls because they would have felt there was a chance. And everybody's got an excuse, It was very disheartening to see how bad the numbers were, coming in with 7% of the vote. We all thought it was going to be so much closer. We knew it was going to be a dog race. We wanted him to win. We wanted to will him to win. We still think he's the best candidate with the best platform. But to see 7% was like, oh my God. And, people say, well, Trump came out and said, vote for Cuomo. I mean, you have the head of the GOP coming out and saying to vote for a Democrat who was rejected by Democrats on an independent line. I don't know what difference that made in the final tallies. I don't know if it worked for or against Cuomo, because usually when Trump endorses somebody, it actually kind of works against them. Yeah, it works against them, right? But we were out there, this past weekend. Trump.
You got a haircut for it, right?
I got a haircut for the interview last week.
All right.
I made my way out to the barber for the interview last week, but Marty brought that up. There you go. Yeah. But yeah, we had Curtis's last rally out in Queens. John had flown in. So we were in Forest Park, and it was a nice turnout. Curtis came in, gave a great speech, great crowd, very enthusiastic. A lot of Finest Unfiltered family were there. I can't shout out everybody because there was a bunch of active members that were there. But, shout out to you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being there. We appreciate it. Amazing Aunt was there. She came out to support. So thank you, Aunt, for being there. Yeah, it was, like I said, I had to take down my lawn signs today. It's like, oh, well, it's over, But yeah, like you said, go figure. Socialism wins. I never thought that over 1 million people in New York City would come out and vote for an open socialist, democratic socialist with very radical ideals, with very radical videos that have come out and resurfaced as, and these aren't old videos. He's what is he, 33 years old? And, some of these videos were as recent as 2023. So it's very, like I said, disheartening. There's the numbers.
It's sad that you look at like 2 million people voted. And I know, like Arnie V had mentioned in the chat, there's a lot more people that live in the city. And to say that number is a record number, right? They say that's the most in numerous years that many people came out and voted. Yet it's such an underrated number from the amount of people that are in the city. I mean, I don't understand why more people didn't come out and vote unless they don't care, unless they felt they were okay with whatever candidate came in and they would deal with it as such. When you talk about the rich people that are going to get taxed up to 52%. What will they do? They'll just move out of the city, right? Because they have the money. They'll just buy a house somewhere else, whether they go to Jersey, Connecticut, or another state. It doesn't matter to them. And when you do the breakdown of the people that voted, a lot of them are young. And I saw a video today from Nate Friedman. He did an interview, like it was like the day before the election, and he made mention of, why do you think Zoran's going to win? And these young people think that this guy said he worked two jobs, and he feels that he has an entitlement to get better. That the free food, the free buses, and all this stuff will help him and give him the opportunity to save money. The rent freeze. So one of the women that was actually a Cuomo supporter said, "Well, that is the American dream, right? You work for what you get, and then you move up, just like we all did." So I just think that there was a lot of people that have this grand delusion that they're going to be getting all this free stuff, and it's going to continually be funded. Because where is the money coming from when you start losing the richer people and stuff, that there's no money? Are they going to that like they talked about on the podcast this morning? Are they going to start taking it from the pension funds? Are they going to take it from other things? Where is all this going to come from? So I just think a lot of people, maybe they're young, naive, and delusional, and they thought that Zoran was going to come up with these great plans. They even said, "Oh, it's only a pilot program. It'll only be this and that, the free groceries." But I don't know. I think the downfall of the city is inevitable at this point, because the infrastructure is gonna fall apart. When you start losing the base of the people that pay the taxes, where are you gonna get the money from? So I don't know. Marlon, I know you're well versed on all that. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's even more disappointing that only 1/3 of Staten Island showed up to vote. Now, I don't know the entire breakdown of registered voters in Staten Island. I was trying to get it, but for some reason, it's well, for me anyway, it was a little harder to get. But I think that's disappointing, because Staten Island's always been considered a stronghold, and you always think that all the conservatives left in New York City are in Staten Island, and you look at this election and they didn't even show up to vote for the conservative Republican candidate. So I don't know what state that puts the Republican Party in the city after this. And if I was in Staten Island right now, I'd be very nervous, to tell you the truth, because I mean, like I said on the show earlier this morning, you already have conditions in that borough that are like terrible. You have the traffic, you have the traffic lights on every block, you have, again, that congestion, and now you're seeing that it's not even a Republican stronghold anymore. So what and plus, you have those tolls that keep going up. So to me, it's like, what do you have left there?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the map, right? Curtis Sleewood did not win one district. Everything is, Curtis is Cuomo Mandami. Staten Island, Cuomo won Staten Island. I mean, Curtis came in second, but Cuomo won Staten Island. Cuomo won Mandami, crushed it in the Bronx. Look at normal, typical GOP stronghold, Staten Island, right? A lot of civil servants live out of Staten Island. And you look at Easton, Queens, the Rockaways. Brooklyn, South, typical GOP strongholds, and they've all voted for Cuomo. I don't get it.
No, it's crazy. And like QC Beast just mentioned, don't forget that Braggs is still the DA, right? In Manhattan.
Yeah.
And now you have Mamdani as the mayor elect coming in January. Can you imagine? I mean, you talk about decriminalization of the stuff that Braggs did, and then on top of that, you're going to have Mamdani where he's going to tell police officers not to enforce certain minor crimes like petty larceny or I guess prostitution and stuff. I don't know. This is completely obscure. It's gonna fall. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster. And I truthfully see a lot of people leaving the city, or at least within the first 6 months, after they see what changes or what's happening, and then they're going to make this grand exit. And you're going to see, like I said, the tax base will go down then, and the police officers not doing anything. Like you're one of the main concerns, right? And we talked about with Curtis all the time was your safety. Now you're gonna lose that safety, and people are gonna be afraid and scared, and they're not gonna want to stay there. That's the one thing. Especially you have children. If you have children and you got to take your kids to school, all those things are gonna affect you because now you're gonna be scared. I mean, just think about it. Your poor little your kids walking, and you never know what's gonna happen. What could happen in front of you? I don't know. It just seems like the cascading effect of the downturn is already begun, and it's inevitable. And it's going to happen. There's no way around it right now.
Yeah. In the chat, Gio Rowe is saying disheartening that 1 million people voted for him. Yeah, I agree. Gio Rowe on Facebook. So yeah, those of you who are watching Facebook and on X, the chat's a lot more interactive. If you come over to YouTube, the Finest Unfiltered channel, there's a lot more interaction on the chat. And you can see the chat that's going on live and get involved. And I can't see the picture very well on the thumbnail, Gio Rowe, but if you're who I think you are, just throw another comment out there and let me know that you are who I think you are. And I'm really far behind on this chat again because it's blasting. The chat is blasting up here. So we appreciate everything. The interaction with the chat. Also, last week we jumped off, Rob. Before we move on any further, we jumped off last week before we were able to acknowledge the super stickers. So we want to just throw them up real quick and just acknowledge last week's super sticker. It's all bad. We appreciate you. Excellent interview. Thank you, Curtis. Considering the Finest Unfiltered, Joe Mango. He was talking about a question that came up. About if we would go back and if we would be the PC. And then we have exact opposite McCultra reading 01. I don't know. We never saw that name before. That's a mouthful right there. $1.99. Hey, Mr. Mayor, all the best from the Menendez family. And then Arbad, an avid listener. We appreciate 1999 Red Braves with your espresso. Curtis is the only man for the job. He's New York City WABC Raiders disappointing. A lot of people disappointing. Arbad. A lot of people that went against Curtis. Yeah, it's just And then another super sticker at 555, and I can't read what it was. But we really appreciate everybody's donations. And we forgot last week we kind of jumped off because we went a little longer than we wanted to, and we didn't want to leave those out. So we appreciate them. We always appreciate the support. Number one, the engagement. We love the engagement on the show with the chat. And it's tough right now. It's good I can have Marlon and Rob talking a little bit while I'm trying to catch up on the chat too. That'll help me out a little bit today. But I'm way behind already. I'm at 513, and I got a whole almost page of chats left.
1713. Don't get in trouble, please.
I didn't say 0513, Rob. I said
I know, but
513. You
they
said
crawl it.
0513 because that's the way it reads there.
They color me either way. So
yeah. So I see a super sticker jumped up. I'll get to it in a little bit. But yeah. So listen, there's a lot of promises that were made by Zohan Mondami, right? And listen, he's in. And the words of Mayor Ed Koch after he lost in 1989, the people have spoken, and now they must be punished. So I hope that that's not the case. I really hope, beyond hope, that somehow the city can come out of this on the better end. I'm a hopeless optimistic, I guess, right? But there's some things that he's promising, and even promised in his, victory speech. Fast, free buses. New York City is not in charge of the MTA. I don't know how you can authorize free buses. I don't know how you get free buses. City-owned grocery stores. We'll see how that works out, right? There already are some out there. Free public childcare for all. Okay. We talked about this in the past. The $30 minimum wage by 2030 would be very, very harmful to small businesses. So I don't know how that's going to work out. What do you think so far?
Mullen, you want to take that? Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out, because even if they find some creative way to get to pay for it, and I think we're living in an age of very creative plays by government. If we just look at what the federal government is doing with to pay for its workers during the closure right now. But even if he were to find some creative way to do it, where would he find the money from? As we said before, the city's already losing businesses, and that's tax revenue, and it's no longer as vibrant as it was. So on my way home last night, I said, you know what? Let me take a drive south locally and just see how vibrant the city is. And I drove down Second Avenue all the way through the Lower East Side. And granted, it's a weekday, but I remember how the city looked years ago. And even on a weekday, you still saw a lot of business activity, a lot of people on the streets, a lot of bars open in Manhattan. And what I saw showed me that the city is no longer as vibrant as it once was. And that includes finding a diner or a restaurant or a bar that's open past 11 o'clock now. So those don't exist anymore. And the city is still hemorrhaging even more residents and businesses. So that's a lot of money that's flying out the door to South Florida and Texas and Tennessee. So even if he wanted to do it, where's he going to find the money from? I think he can't right now.
No, I think I was going to put my application into McDonald's. But, $30 an hour, I could stand at that drive-through and say, "Can I take your order?" I mean, that's pretty damn good. Or maybe, I think, but yeah, you're right. It will be the downfall. $30. And you're gonna imagine working in a small mom and pop store and demanding $30 an hour. I mean, that's ridiculous. And just think about when I talked about earlier, the safety of the city. When people don't feel safe, they're not going to go around shopping, right? Especially not going to the small mom and pop stores. And it's going to be the downfall. And all these stores are going to go bankrupt and stuff. So, Ron, I just want to give a shout out to MDRN Samurai. I appreciate the super chat there. A $50 donation to the podcast. I think that deserves a couple licorices for you there, Ron. Definitely.
Hey, I got to catch up to it. I'll get it. I appreciate it.
All right.
Rob says I got my licorice and my Diet Coke.
Nice Diet Cokes, but I appreciate that, MDRN Samurai. I worked for Rob in the 2-3. Great man. Thank you so much. I love the 2-3. I was the XO there. Great bunch of people. Really the hard workers. It was really a great command. I was a brand new captain when I got there with at the time Deputy Inspector Steve Bonanno. Great man. He was a true leader. God rest his soul. Died from 9/11. Cancer. But the men and women of the 2-3 always in my heart. So I appreciate that.
I just got yelled at in the chat in my personal text for taking a bite of that licorice on camera. So with Corvette Tony, it makes a comment here. I can't believe you guys are actually shocked he won. You guys were on the job. Look at what the city is made up of. I don't think that we were shocked, really, Tony, that he won. I think we're shocked that over 1 million people voted for him and how low the turnout was for Curtis. I think that's where our shock is. I think that we all knew that we were fighting a very hard uphill battle, and that Mondami was leading the race, and we were hoping against hope. But I think that's more of the shock than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure that there was the hope, right? The hope that he had the following. I mean, I was shocked, truthfully, about Staten Island. I thought for sure everybody would come out and Staten Island, and then I had rumors that the Bronx was going to follow him and stuff. So you figured he was going to pick up a few here and there, but I just think that the turnout again to me wasn't strong enough. I mean, and to what you just said, Ron, we were all on the job. We understand the dynamics. We understand the city, and the political atmosphere. So are we completely shocked? No, but I'm shocked. I can go back to that fact that I was shocked in the primary that he actually won the primary, Mamdani, and beat out Adams and Cuomo. So I mean, that's where it all started. I think that was the downfall. So I don't know. It's rough.
Yeah. And I look at the Rockaways too. Rockaways, very disappointing. Very, very disappointing that it's solo.
Yeah. So, again, these are the numbers. The disparity really gets to me. And then the fact that Curtis didn't win any districts. So it's really, like I said, disheartening. And, I want to be the eternal optimist and hope that we're going to come out of this on a better side, and that it's not going to be the way that we're, thinking it might be. But, let's keep going about what his promises were, right? He talks about increasing the tax, right, in the richer and whiter neighborhoods. This is right off of his platform. We've talked about this in the past, how it's amazing, and how if anybody would have said anything of the opposite, that it's just it blows my mind. You just come right out and say the richer, whiter neighborhoods, I'm going to tax them more. But he can't. He can't. The taxing comes from upstate, and Governor Hochul has already said that she's not going to be increasing the taxes on the top 1% or whatever the case may be. So, let's talk about, how do you think, because President Trump said if Mondami wins, I'm pulling federal funding from New York City. And during the debate, Mondami and Cuomo both said they were going to fight Trump. And Curtis Sliwa said, how are you going to fight the man with all the power? He's the man that's holding the cards. He's the man that has the power. Why are you going to fight with him instead of trying to work with him, sitting down with his administration and trying to work with him? But that's not the case. So now we have what? We have his acceptance speech. And for those of you who saw his acceptance speech, I watched it today because I was at the watch party last night. So I watched it today, and I just like, usually when somebody has a victory speech, not an acceptance speech, but a victory speech, they talk about it's time to now come together. Let's put Let's put the politics of the campaign behind us, and let's move forward, and let's work together to make it a better city. Right? Isn't that what you normally hear? No matter what the race is for? That's all behind us. Now we got to move forward. We got to work together to make it a better place. It's not what I heard. It's not what I heard. In the very beginning, what does he say? He doesn't mention Curtis Sliwa, first of all, at all. But he wishes Governor Cuomo luck in his private life, throwing a dig at him. And then goes on to say, may his name never come across my lips again. Is that bringing unity together? And this is somebody from his own Democratic Party. And listen, everybody's throwing barbs at each other. It happens in every race. But to come out now and that's pretty much your opening, to your acceptance speech.
He doesn't care. That's the thing. He feels he has the following. He has his base, and he's gonna, do all his, he's gonna put all these if he can put these promises out. Like I said, I don't think much of it he can really do, but he's going to throw that out there, and he feels that he's going to, like a standalone almost. He's going to, he's going to take his party to the next level. So, to fight Trump, I mean, you're not going to really win. Do I think that Trump should have really said that? I don't agree with that either. I mean, there's still, no matter what, right? No matter what party we are, no matter what religion we are, color or creed, we're all Americans. So I mean, I don't think you need to pull funding to stop investigations for terrorists and things like that. Remember, this year coming up, right, in 2026, we're literally on the 25th anniversary of 9/11. Okay, and like Giuliani said earlier today, I think we've forgotten because of the results of the election, and now the fight of, am I going to accept, these funds to put people into the Joint Terrorist Task Force? I'm going to fight this, for counterterrorism. Are we setting ourselves up for a disaster? So I think, like you said, Ron, he should be working together, but he doesn't care. He's not gonna, I hate to say kiss the ring, but he's not going to even try to make some sort of agreement and get funding. But again, like I said, I don't agree with President Trump saying I'm going to pull the funding. No. And I totally don't agree that and listen, like John and Eric and I think Marlon have all said, I voted for Trump 3 times, absolutely, but I was appalled when Trump said, I'm endorsing Andrew Cuomo. That blew my mind. Are you kidding me? He's not. You're allegedly the leader of the Republican Party, and you're endorsing an independent candidate who lost in the Democratic primary. Where is your support? Listen, I know you pick and choose, but then I said you shouldn't pick anybody then. Keep your mouth shut and just let the elections run. But you threw that man's name out, a man that you were fighting with during COVID about, what you can do and what he can't. And he was playing you, send me a ship. I need a hospital ship. Send me thousands of respirators and send me this. And then didn't use any of them. So, I mean, I don't know. I was kind of appalled that he did that, but I don't think, Zoran's going to do anything to bring it together at all. You could see, like you said in that speech, there was separation. You got to go through all of us. It was like the beginning of a war, right? You got to go through all of us, not just me. You got to go through all of us. So he's setting the boundaries. So that's how I felt. I like I said, a Trump supporter, absolutely, but sometimes I think things are best not said.
Yeah, I agree. I think Zohan is resorting to demagoguery because in a lot of ways he really has no real plans. Like I said, on the campaign, he seemed very personable. His his team makes great marketing, great videos. Even he put out one earlier today, which is great. You could tell they're high quality and very professional, and he smiles a lot. But he's not going to go into details, and he's not going to tell you how he's going to pay for a lot of the things that he's promising. And now, as the campaign is over and he's going into office, he now has to deliver, and he won't be able to do it. So he's resorting to demagoguery and the whole us versus them to try and keep his base motivated. When I like I said, earlier today, I think in a couple months, his base is going to stop getting unhappy with him, because just like the guy in Chicago right now who made a lot of socialist promises, he couldn't deliver, and his base is furious at him, and his poll numbers are in like single digits right now. So I think that's Mamdani's future. So to delay that, he's resorting to demagoguery right now.
All right, let's see what. Go ahead. You have something, Rob?
No, because Joe Mango asked something earlier, and he asked it like for all three of us. He just asked, does he think that there was some sort of were the results concocted? Was there something with the results? So I personally, I didn't hear anything. I heard there was a couple bomb threats that came from Russia, some of the polling places, but
I know in New Jersey there was bomb threats at a couple of polling places, but they locked up a teenager for that.
Did they? I saw today there was something with some things coming out of Russia, but I didn't hear of any other type of I wouldn't say that there was, unless there was some sort of evidence. When you see either video or some sort of a whistleblower that comes up and says, yeah, this and that and other things. So I don't know. Did you hear anything at all, either of you? Or
I haven't heard anything about that. I didn't see anything about that with Russia. I do remember last night I heard that that they locked up a teenager for the bomb threat in Jersey, but I didn't hear any kind of Russian collusion.
Very fascinating.
Well, let's take a listen to Mamdani's a part of Mamdani's victory speech, and when it relates to Trump.
Together, we will usher in a generation of change. And if we embrace this brave new course, rather than fleeing from it, we can respond to oligarchy and authoritarianism with the strength it fears, not the appeasement it craves. After all, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. We will hold bad landlords to account because the Donald Trumps of our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks. We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
What does that mean? Turn up the volume. I mean, I can't hear it all the time. I got like I'm tone deaf at one or two tones. I do turn the TV up all the time. What is that? I don't really know. Seriously, I don't know what that means. Turn up the volume.
He's trying to bait him. He's trying to bait him.
To what?
Keep coming. Keep coming. Turn it up. What do you got for me?
I think he could just say, let's go. Come at me. Something. Turn up the volume.
I think Trump is going to tell him to turn up the volume when he comes begging for the those federal funds. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Even CNN was looking at this victory speech and saying, I don't see it. I don't see it. So Van Jones, let's listen to what Van Jones had to say about this speech.
I think the Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech. And I think that Mamdani is the one you need to hear from tonight. There are a lot of people trying to figure out, can I get on this train with him or not? Is he going to include me? Is he going to be more of a class warrior even in office? I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people into the tent. I think his tone was sharp. I think he was using the microphone in a way that he was almost yelling. And that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. So I felt like there's a little bit of a character switch here where the warm, open, embracing guy that's close to working people was not on stage tonight. And there was some other voice on stage. That said, he's very young. And he just pulled off something that's very, very difficult. And I wouldn't write him off, but I think he missed an opportunity to open himself up tonight. And I think that will probably cost him going forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't see any crocodile tears tonight, but from him, right? But what is he saying? This isn't the guy that we saw out on the campaign trail that was asking for our votes. This isn't the guy that was warm and soft and big smile and, what did we say? The wolf in sheep's clothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's more of this to come.
Yeah. Wait till he can't do the stuff that he promises and people get pissed and he does other things that he didn't promise. Then we'll see, I
hope he's learned a lesson of Eric Adams, not walking into City Hall with arrogance and cockiness. And then, 2 years in, you realize that you actually have to be professional and you have to, get down to business, and it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember Adams? Oh, I'm not going to have a security detail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And remember on the campaign trail, Adams is filming some poor guy getting assaulted. And then, oh, look at this. And he didn't do anything, even as a retired police officer. Oh, I'm not going to have a security detail. And then he's got the biggest one and he brings all his friends in. I mean, the detriment to the police department and the city in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just, let's talk about what else.
What?
Go ahead.
What happens to the NYPD cops now, though? That right?
We'll
I
get,
mean,
we'll get into that. We're gonna get into that when we get into. We're gonna get into the NYPD specific next. But
okay.
let's just finish up his overall plan and the things that he can and can't do that may come up, right? But what's the other main thing that he ran on? Freezing the rent for rent stabilized,
The rent.
right?
Yeah.
For rent stabilized apartments. And people are saying that the Rent Guidelines Board are the ones in charge of that, and that he can't actually freeze the rents. Well, you have to look into this, people. The Rent Guidelines Board is comprised of 9 appointed members. It's 8 members and then the chairperson. Who appoints all 9 members, the 8 members and the chairperson? Care to guess?
I'm going to guess the mayor.
The New York City mayor. The New
Yeah.
York City mayor appoints the Rent Guidelines Board. I didn't want to put the graphic up because it's just really convoluted, but they run in staggering terms of 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years. They run staggered. There are some people that are appointed to be advocates for the public, some that are advocates for the owners. So it's a little convoluted, but they're like the CCRB, where they're allowed to stay in their position after their term, after their appointed term, if they're not replaced. So when you look at the Rent Guidelines Board, who has to be the ones to set this freeze in place, all appointed by the mayor. The chairperson serves at the discretion or it's called the pleasure of the mayor. They can be removed and replaced at any time. The other 8 have their terms, but once their term is up, they can be replaced. 7 of the 8 board members are out of term as of January 1st. There's only one person that's in. There's 2 people that are in term. One person's term ends December 31st, January 1st. So right when Mondami comes in, that person's out of term and is eligible to be replaced. And one other board member, their term runs through December 31st of next year. That means that day one, when Mondami comes in, right, any board member may remain on the board after the expiration of his or her term until a qualified new member is appointed. We're going to get to the qualification in a second. The mayor is required to fill any vacancy which may occur by reason of death, resignation, or otherwise in a manner consistent with the original appointments. A member may be removed for cause, but not without an opportunity to be heard, blah, blah, blah. At least 10 days notice, right? So what is it? All members are required to be residents of the city, must maintain residence during that period of service. It's sort of the commissioners, but that seems to not be enforced. Each public member must have led at least 5 years experience in either finance, economics, or housing. No member may be employed or an officer in any state or municipal rent regulation agency, nor can any member own or manage rental properties affected by the board's order or be an officer in any owner or tenant organization. The chairperson may hold no other public office. All members take an oath, and they're blah, blah, blah. So there you have it. January 1, Mayor Mondami has the authority to put into place whoever he wants on the Rent Guidelines Board. What do you guys think about that?
Marlon?
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I think that, funny enough, that goes hand in hand with the city of Yes, because if they do make changes to rent stabilization, maybe do another rent freeze, similar initiative, that kind of works hand in hand with the ballot measures on the other side of the questions about the fast tracking affordable housing, which was number 2 of the ballot questions, or simplifying a review of modest housing and infrastructure projects. because what I think rent control does is it prevents true price discovery for rents, meaning the market, yeah, those apartments stay off the market, and it changes the dynamics of the supply and demand for apartments. And what that does is it limits supply as well. And then Mamdani can continue saying, "Oh, we need to build more affordable housing." And this is where, the Bill Ackman types and the real estate developers again come in, because now Mamdani has the ability to, or he'll be able to kind of build public support for pushing more city government subsidies, or like we've talked about before, using the pension funds to invest in affordable housing. So I think, funny enough, that if he does make any changes, those changes are going to go hand in hand with what they want to do with the city of Yes.
Yeah, I also think that people that have vacant apartments are not going to rent them, right? Why should I
Yes.
rent, especially with the eviction rules? Because you can have somebody that comes in there, doesn't pay the rent, you can't even get them out. And could you imagine that? So many people come into your building because now it's rent stabilized, it's rent stopped, right? Because now there's no raise and everything else. And what does that? It's cheaper for me probably not to have to even rent that and just keep the apartment and take it as a write off or whatever, then have to continually rent it at such a low rate that I'm not even making any money back. And that also can affect the people that own the buildings, whether or not to upkeep and to fix apartments and make them livable. So I just think it's another down spiral. And you're right, I agree 100%, Marlon. He's going to say, hey, we need to build more affordable housing, we need to do this, let's take over that, let's take this building. So I think it's just going to compound it, and it's going to exacerbate it. I could see where it's a city-owned building, rent controlled, rent stabilized, rent stopped, right? And they're just going to keep putting people in there. So instead of taking care of the homeless and everybody else, they're going to put people in there at these particular buildings, and then no rent increase. And don't forget, where does he come from, right? A family of money, but he's in a rent stabilized apartment. So who is he going to get to go into these rent stabilized
Yep.
apartments? So
just remember with the rent stabilization that it's rent stabilized apartments, which is about 1 million apartments in New York City. So it really affects 45% of all rentable income properties, in New York City. So, and it's mostly comprised of multiple dwelling apartment buildings and things of the nature. A lot of them that were built before 1974, and so they maintained in rent stabilization laws throughout. There are some modern apartment buildings that are getting tax benefits because they're staying rent stabilized for lower income housing.
right.
So it's about 1 million or 45% of the rentals. So it's not everybody. So, people say, oh, I own a house and I'm not going to be able to rent my apartment downstairs because I can't raise my rent. No, your apartment downstairs or upstairs in your personal house or your rental property is not rent stabilized. So it's not really going to affect you, but it does. People still own those properties, right? They still have expenses. Inflation is still going up. And a lot of times the rent increases don't even match that of inflation.
Yeah. And I think we kind of touched on this a couple podcasts ago, that there are a lot of apartments in New York City that are empty right now. Right. And it's just unaffordable for small business, for small landlords to renovate them in light of the stabilization. And I honestly believe you really have to wonder just what percentage of those apartments in New York City are vacant right now, and just how big the actual problem is. And this goes to why I say, like, I think this is I really wish the state would get on it and you know, do its part to fix up the rest of the state, to encourage young people to move to cheaper parts, because it's obvious to me that the city and the city's government and the developer class, nobody wants to fix the issue, to really touch on the issue. And I think that in itself is because if you do remove rent stabilization, a lot of them, a lot of their luxury apartments and really expensive apartments, the price would actually go down, because now they would have to compete with the new the smaller landlords putting their apartments on the market from much cheaper rates. And a lot of those apartments, believe it or not, are large old style apartments with like we're talking like 15-foot ceilings or you know. So I think the city is just unwilling to touch the issue at all and fix the problem.
Yeah, Aria, you know, a recent contributor the last couple of weeks into the election. You guys complain when Mandami smiles, he smiles too much. And then you complain when he's serious, he can't win. No, we're saying that prior to the election, that his smile was fake, his tone was different. You saw the rhetoric that he had in a lot of videos that were posted on multiple platforms, and he tried to walk them back. You heard him when he talked about his feelings about the NYPD, and then he refused to apologize. Then he gave a half-hearted apology, which really wasn't an apology until the very, very end. And then he finally said the words, "I'm sorry," but it was disingenuous. It was disingenuous. So it's not that he can't win. I'm hoping that he does well. I wish him well. The people have spoken. The people of New York City have spoken that this is what they want. They want a democratic socialist to run our city. I guess watching around the country, they haven't learned their lesson from other democratic socialists that are running their cities into the ground. Crime is on the rise. Quality of life is diminishing. Please, somebody in the chat, tell me a socialist country that has thrived. Please, somebody throw that in the chat for me. Aria, you're a big Mandami supporter. I get it. That's fine. Opposition meets opportunity. First Amendment platform. We don't stifle you. But tell me how socialism is going to make New York City better. Please, can one of you guys explain it to me? Because I'm a little naive.
Yeah.
Marlon, on you? What do you think?
Well, I see 1804 Banks has mentioned the UK, and I'd like to point out for 1804 Banks that the UK is on the verge of bankruptcy itself. The idea has already been floated to the IMF to bail out the UK and France as well. And both are places that are very socialist right now and already have high taxes and they have no industry. When you have high taxes like that, it guts your industry. They move to places that the cost of production and the cost of labor are much cheaper. So again, like Ron said, give us a place where it's been successful.
And there was a woman I watched an interview from. She was from Ukraine, and she literally came here 20 years ago, and she said she hated communism, right? And then so the interviewer asked her, "Hey, but Madami's a socialist Democrat." She goes, "It's the same thing. It's the same thing as communism." And I thought I left that 20 years ago. It didn't work, and now it looks like it's coming back to New York City. So I'm gonna be stuck with it again.
Exactly. Why are all these people migrating to the United States? They're escaping tyranny. They're escaping oppression of communism and socialism. And they're coming here, and now we're embracing it. Yeah. Embracing immigrants is one thing. We don't agree that the border should have been opened up under the Biden administration, and millions of people come in illegally and unvetted. There's a path for migration. There's a path for immigration to come in legally and be a productive member of our society and make the United States a better place as a melting pot, I'm all for it. But these people are all coming here saying it's because my country is so horrible. And then they want to come here and vote for people that are going to give them the free stuff. It just blows my mind. And Stephen S., again, a wolf in sheep's clothing, as I described him. Again, just a quick shout out to Stephen S. He was there last night at the watch party. Appreciate your support. A very big supporter of Curtis Sliwa, out doing a lot of work for Curtis Sliwa. Disappointed as the rest of us last night. It was good to see you last night again. And, shout out also to Hassan before he yells at us for not giving him a shout out. I saw him in the chat earlier. I don't want to get yelled at by Hassan. So shout out to our buddy Hassan. But yeah, I mean, what are you thinking, Rob, with all that?
I mean, it's just insanity. If it didn't work in other countries and people fled, like you just said, from those countries to come here for a better life, and now we're going to introduce it here in this country. I mean, what did they say? If you don't look at the history, it's likely to repeat itself. I mean, let's look at it. Let's understand it. It didn't work, and this whole country was based on, economic freedom to be able to move and do whatever you can. And now I don't know. It's yeah, we're not looking at what has happened. We're not looking at the results. But for some reason, people are believing it again. And like I said earlier, you see a lot of young people, that think that this is going to work, that they're going to get free stuff, and that they're going to continue to get it. And I just don't understand it.
Time out.
Time out.
I'm sorry. I got to push back on Aria. Aria's responding back. I voted for him because I think he's a great organizer and negotiator. I'll stop there. I'll address that. He ran a great campaign for the primary. I think he peaked campaign-wise at the primary. He ran a great social media platform. He got people out. He had 100,000 plus people on the street. Yes, he organized a great campaign. I don't know where you get negotiator. What has he negotiated? He's 33 years old? Did he turn 34 yet? But he's really a non-entity in the New York State Assembly. Doesn't have a track record. I don't know what he's negotiated that you think that he's a good negotiator. And you think he'll be able to raise corporate taxes to equal New Jersey. Once again, Aria, the New York City mayor, cannot raise corporate taxes and tax the millionaires 2%. Once again, that's a state, right? You like his pilot bus program. The MTA runs the buses, not the New York City mayor. So you're listening to what he's saying, but not looking at the reality of what can be executed. And that's part of the problem with the young voters, is they're just listening. They're not doing any independent research, and they're believing what they're being told. So I'm sorry to cut you off like that, Rob, but I had to push back there because your reasons for voting for him, that says a lot about the generation. And we talk about this, and we talked about this offline. We talked about this last night, is we have a generation of entitlement where everybody feels so entitled that they deserve everything without earning it. And here you have somebody that's saying, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you for free. And let's see what he's able to do. We just broke down and went over some of the things that he's promised in his platform and where we feel he can and he cannot execute those things. I didn't mean to cut you off, Rob. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I understand. Listen, if somebody was giving me nobody's going to turn free stuff down, right? If somebody was giving me free stuff, I'll take it. I don't have a problem with that, but and eventually there's a cost, right? So where does the cost come from? That's the main problem. Yeah, you want to give me free? Listen, Governor DeSantis is looking to put on the ballot next year that no more property taxes for anybody in Florida. Well, that sounds like a free thing to me. I would love that. But let me ask you, is it going to affect our infrastructure? Is it going to affect our roads, our sewers? You know, where is the county going to get the money then? Is something else going to get taxed? Is it going to be like a luxury tax? Or are you going to tax cigarettes and alcohol? So, you know, explain it to me. But you just can't give people free stuff and expect that it's going to continually be free. Otherwise, none of us should work, and we should all just sit home and get money free. And when they start printing more money, right, without the backing, then it devalues the dollar. Then what happens? What happens to our whole economic system? So,
yeah. And just to comment before you go, Marlon, just to comment on Grace's comment, wait till he hires his whole family for various offices. To be perfectly honest, I don't think he's going to do that. I think he saw how nepotism and cronyism destroyed the Adams administration. And there was scandal after scandal because he didn't put anybody in position that really had the experience and the wherewithal for the positions that they were put in. They were put in because of their relationships with Eric Adams, not because of their qualifications. I don't think that he's going to do that. I think he's going to put people that he feels can get his agenda across the finish line into place. So I really don't think he's going to start putting all his buddies. Look, if you look at his transition team, who is his transition team? It's Eric Adams, former chief of staff, who resigned when Adams, went MAGA. And they said, no, this is not what we're about. So the 4 deputy commissioners resigned, right? So she's on the, and also de Blasio's. You got 3 people that were on de Blasio's team, and you have 1 person that was in the Biden administration. So who is he surrounding himself with? Socialists with some political experience. So I'll give him kudos for that he's tapping people with experience. I don't agree with their ideologies. I don't agree with the socialist agenda, but he's taking people that have experience, and we'll see where it goes, because look where the de Blasio administration brought New York. It brought New York into a downward spiral, right? Because he was a socialist himself. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. De Blasio was a socialist. You can look at Eric Adams and say he's a democratic socialist as well, because of, all the things that he tried to implement. So go ahead, Marlon.
No, I was just going to point out that area also mentioned Sweden and Norway for places where socialism is working. And I'd like to point out to area that those aren't socialist countries. They have high welfare costs. Okay, social welfare programs. And by the way, right now, those countries are looking to make cuts to those programs, because those programs, you see, they've also imported a lot of third world people from third world countries, and a lot of those people are taking advantage of that welfare state, those welfare state benefits. So those countries are looking to make changes now, because long term, those programs become unsustainable when you have now such a higher population, and you have a population that's no longer as, say, homogenous as it once was. So I think you need a better example. But a lot of people like to point out that China is socialist, and I'm going to say that they're not. China themselves aren't even socialists anymore, because China doesn't have social welfare programs, So again, this stuff hasn't worked anywhere in the world. It's just against human nature, and it hasn't been successful. And I don't understand why people who claim these things are so successful don't ever, go to those countries, because, if you wanted it immediately, go see how it is over there. Instead, they want to change the culture and the dynamics as they already are of this country, which this country has worked for how long, being capitalistic and being the #1 economy in the world. And why would we change that if that has worked for so long? So I think you missed the point, Aria.
And again, not to beat Aria, not to beat her up, but you're putting your comments out there, and this is our perspective, right? So we're gonna push back on you. You know, who's crying for millionaire landlords? you make them sound like mom and pop. Once again, that's a socialist mindset where you're going to hold it against the person who did well financially in their life, was able to purchase, build, whatever the case may be, this housing, and now they shouldn't get fair market value, and they should just give it away because they have other money. Again, they don't deserve it because they have money. They should just give it to somebody else who doesn't have money. This doesn't make sense. That's not capitalism. That's socialism. I'm not saying that that the rent should be, 10, 15%, and we should be, charging people out where they can't afford, they become homeless. I'm not saying that at all. But why is it okay that we're going to freeze the rent when the cost of living for those millionaire landlords to maintain those properties is going up, and they shouldn't be able to recoup what they have to put out? So what's going to happen when they're not having the income to come in, right? The upkeep of the apartments is going to go down. The maintenance of those apartments is going to go down. The maintenance of the infrastructure of those apartments is going to go down. Boiler systems, air conditioning systems, trash removal systems, all these things. They're not making the money to fix them. You want them to go into their pocket because they're a millionaire and take money into the negative to maintain this apartment for somebody because the cost is going up of utilities, but I'm not able to recoup that. It just doesn't make sense to me. Listen, we're an hour and 12 minutes in. Terry Renane mentions it all the time. Appreciate you, Terry. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Get the algorithm going. Again, we have over 600 people watching on the different platforms. So we got a lot of people watching on X. I recommend that you jump over into YouTube. Get involved in the interactive chat. You can see the chat. You can see what's being said in the chat on YouTube. We can see it, and we can interact a little bit more. So that's my recommendation. We jump over. And again, Aria, I'm not trying to beat you up at all. That's not the point. You're putting your point of view out, and we're giving out. And listen, it's the executive perspective, right? It's Marlon's perspective on how we see things, and that doesn't make us 100% right. Doesn't make you 100% right. That's your perspective, and that's what you feel. And we feel that that's part of the problem of society today is that people want everything for nothing. Yeah. Because I did well in life in some other forms, and now say I want to buy a rental property because I was able to put money aside after busting my hump while I worked, for more than half of my life, 3/4 of my life, and I was able to, put some money aside that now I can afford to maybe buy a rental property. I should now suffer because I can do that. Everybody has the opportunity. I came from absolutely nothing. I didn't grow up in one of these, white, rich neighborhoods. I literally came from nothing and built anything that I have by myself, by hard work and perseverance. Everybody has that opportunity. Nothing was handed to me. Nothing.
Yeah, I think, Aria, I'm not picking on you again. And like I always said, we appreciate divergent views on this network. But I think people, you confuse capitalism with crony capitalism. And when you see people like I pointed out, Bill Ackman, people who try to game the system unfairly, that's not capitalism. That's crony capitalism. Because true capitalism is everybody has equal up. Everyone has an opportunity to compete, and the little guy has an opportunity to compete with the big players like Bill Ackman. The problem, unfortunately, is that you have guys like him that game the system and use their money. They weaponize their money to game the system in favor of them, and there's a difference. And I think you might be confusing the two.
Yeah, and again, we're not trying to beat you up. We're we're trying to give our life experience, our perspective, and you know, that's all. You're saying you're grown, and that's fine. I'm not saying you're a kid at all. But let's move on to listen, we're a law enforcement platform, right? We were just talking for the last hour and 15 minutes about just overall policy that's going to affect New York City under Mayor-elect Mamdani. Let's move in towards the law enforcement aspect, right? Let's talk about his Department of Community Safety, right? So his Department of Community Safety, he wants to create this whole new department offset from the police department to relieve the police department of responding to what he considers non-police matters. He wants to put $1 billion into the budget. He wants to hire all these social workers to go out, excuse me, and respond to all these jobs. So we've heard about it. We've talked about it in the past. Let's take a look at the types of jobs that Mayor-elect Mamdani wants his Department of Community Safety to respond to. Right? These are the nonviolent 911 calls that Mamdani wants his people to respond to. Mental health crises and suicidal ideations. Welfare checks. For those who don't know what welfare checks are, welfare checks basically is when somebody calls up and says, "Hey, I haven't heard from my grandmother in 6 weeks or 2 weeks, and I need somebody to go check on their house." And we go there as the police, and we make a determination if we're going to take the door or not, and go in and check on that person to make sure they're okay. Calls involving intoxicated or substance-using persons. Homelessness issues. Public disturbances or breach of conduct calls. So disorderly people. Panhandling. Trespassing or unwanted persons calls, provided there's no threat of violence or weapons. Basic needs assistance, I'm not sure exactly what that is, and neighbor disputes. I'll leave that up there. Let that resonate. Law enforcement. You're looking at 75 years of police experience on the screen, combined. Tell me which one of these, Marlon, we'll start with you, because you were the most recent to actually be in a radio car and responding to calls for service. Tell me on this screen which one you would feel comfortable not responding to and having some caseworker or social worker respond to.
Yeah, Ron. This is like any one of these jobs could quickly escalate into a violent confrontation, and I'm curious how they're going to implement that from the standpoint of the safety of the responders, and also from the standpoint of the callers, the 911 callers, or the victims. Because a lot of times when I was in plainclothes and I'm going to a burglary, you people look at you like, especially if you look young, or you might be dressed really like dressed in street clothes. They're not sure who you are responding. You have to let people know, hey, listen, I'm the police. You gotta show me a shield, and so I'm curious how they're going to implement this and not have things escalate from the people either thinking that the responders aren't city workers or community safety people, and from you know, just the interaction, the level of interaction that could very well go sideways quickly.
If I could break down each one, so mental health crisis, suicidal, you know, having been an emergency service unit, and you expect that a social worker, first of all, I'd like to know how they're going to respond. Are they going to respond lights and siren? Are they going to be given you know, police cars? How are they going to get there?
No, these are
And
non-violent, non-real emergencies. That's why the police don't have to go.
but the point is, how are they going to get there? It doesn't matter what's given on the queue, right? It depends on what's going on. And you know, even if it's somebody's calling 911 and they're saying it's non-violent, then how long does this take these people to get there? Are they going to stop at every red light? Are they going to you know, going to be from the other side of the city? They're never going to get there in time. You know, we're police officers, we're in that precinct, we respond quickly. And then emergency service, when they're called for suicidal, or they're called for you know, barricaded, or whatever the case may be, that, you know, they respond quickly. Welfare checks. Well, welfare checks is another thing that ESU does. So first the cops go there, they knock on the door, nobody answers. Okay. Now they call for ESU to breach the door. What are they going to do for these welfare checks? Are they going to breach the door? No, they're not going to be able to do that. Okay. Intoxicated and substance using person, that's an emotionally disturbed person, right? We saw what K2 did to people. They went nuts. They stripped off their clothes. They started running around. We had to change the whole policy in ESU. We had to like make sure that people were each arm was pushed down and held. And then the paramedics would come in and give them sedative to calm them down. And you couldn't put them in, if you remember the old restraining carry, you couldn't put them in there because their body was overheating and they would die. So homeless issues, all right, I could give them that. But like Curtis had mentioned, you know, the homeless outreach. Public disturbances, two people fighting over something that could easily elevate. And panhandling, what are they going to do? They're going to tell the guy, you can't panhandle, come over here. And then trespassing,
Who's doing the panhandling, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, right, the poor homeless guys. And now trespassing is a prelude to a burglary, like Marlon, you just had mentioned, right? That, you know, the first thing they do is they're trespassing. Are they casing the joint? They're doing something else. They could be armed. So you're going to send people to do this? Oh, you're not supposed to be on this property. Yeah, okay. I mean, the whole idea of this Department of Community Safety is lunacy. It's going to hurt people. And then what are they going to expect? They're going to expect the police to come afterwards and clean up that mess. And that's going to be the hardest thing, because now it's already gone to shit. And now you're going to expect the police to come in and do all, you know, to make it all right again. No, this is crazy. And I'll talk about a social worker in Westchester County that went to the wrong apartment, knocked on the door, was doing some sort of social work, and she ended up getting murdered. The case is on trial now in Westchester County. So it's dangerous. And where are you going to get these social workers? I mean, who's going to volunteer for this? I mean, yeah, you could throw up policy, you could throw up things, you could throw things. You look at Curtis Lee, well, his plan, is spot on. He had answers, he had questions and answers. This, to me, is let me throw a bucket of shit on the wall and see what sticks, because that's what it is. Sorry, I went off.
No, I get it, and I agree. You look at all of these things, and like Marlon said, first thing you said, every one of these things could jump off almost immediately. Almost every single one of these things. You're going to send people that are going to go for some type of training, right? What kind of de-escalation training are they going to get? Who are you going to hire? Who are you going to hire for these people? How much are you going to pay them? $30,000? You can pay them $30,000 to go out there. They're going to go out there. They're going to be getting abused day one, and they're going to be like, "Screw this." You're not going to be able to maintain a workforce. We can't hardly maintain an NYPD workforce. And NYPD cops are making $100,000 a year minimum, right? After the top pay, and you can't keep them. And you think that you're going to alleviate the police from all of these types of jobs by initiating this Department of Community Service. And again, mental health crisis and suicidations. Rob, you've talked about it in the past. You were part of it with the co-responses and everything else. With but it was a co-response. There has to be, the police have to be there. You see, when we watch all of these videos, the unfortunate situations, and then the cops always, get criticized because they had to use deadly physical force, or they had to use physical force, less than lethal force, the taser, or they get into a physical confrontation with somebody, and it just doesn't look pretty, right? Because police work doesn't look pretty. They have to use force. Oh, but this poor emotionally disturbed person, right? But that emotionally disturbed person got physically violent, failed to comply. But now Mondami's, what he has said in the past on videos is that it's because of the presence of the police escalates the situation instead of de-escalating the situation. Excuse me. And I can see in some situations that happens, that the police walk in and it incites people. Just the sight of the police incites the emotionally disturbed person for one reason or another. Maybe they had a negative interaction in the past, or now they know the police showed up. Mom and dad are threatening them, but now the police shows up and they know that they're going to the hospital. They don't want to go to the hospital, whatever the case may be. Welfare checks. Are you now giving these $30 an hour? And again, I'm guessing at $30 an hour because we don't know what they're going to be getting paid. But you're going to pay these social workers, and you're going to give them the authority to go into someone's home to do a welfare check? Because welfare checks aren't always when people are home. When people are home, you're doing a welfare check. Again, that's on the line of emotionally disturbed. And let's go back to suicidal also. Someone that has some suicidal ideations. Yeah, no, there's no weapons. I just want to kill myself, or he's threatening or she's threatening to kill herself, blah, 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 blah. But what's always right there? What's always right there? Sharp objects, blunt instruments, right? What are they going to do? They have nothing to defend themselves with once it goes south. Intoxicated and substance abusing persons, like you said, Rob. Oh my God, those right there, persons not of a right mind. Those people that you're dealing with are in an altered mental status. Just by the name, intoxicated and substance using persons. They have altered mental statuses. And sometimes the intoxicated person is passed out or incoherent or in need of attention. But a lot of other times, they're amped up. And they're raring to go. That's why you see bar fights all the time and things like that. The homelessness, again, I'll agree with you, Rob, on that one. Go out there and interact with the homeless people and have the ability to get them the proper services and mental health help. Also, try to get them to get to a place, whether it's a shelter or whatever the case may be. But that's another issue and another part that I haven't really heard about. How are we going to improve the shelter system? Curtis Lewa talked about that. But you need to improve the shelter system. The shelter system in New York City is a broken system. And a lot of homeless people don't want to go to a shelter. They'd rather sit there and tell you, I want to go to jail. We've all responded to jobs where people commit crimes and they want to go to jail. I'd rather spend a night in the Tombs or go to Rikers Island for the weekend than go to a shelter. Because at the shelter, I'm going to get robbed. I'm going to get sexually abused. I'm going to get, assaulted, where I have a better chance of having supervised coverage in a jail situation. Again, like you said, public disturbances, breaches of conduct. That means that people are out of control, and you're going to send these people in. Panhandlers, we've seen panhandling going south. It turns into road rage. Again, trespassing, that's a crime. And I don't know what basic needs for assistance are. And disputes. In and of itself, disputes. It's a dispute. People are fighting.
It's,
You're gonna
it's
go
all,
there.
I just want to jump in real quick, Marlon. Sorry to cut you off, but de-escalation is not the only thing that you need to do. You need to learn mental health, right? So if somebody is a psychotic or has some sort of other, mental health, you just can't say, oh, that we were trained in de-escalation. And the other thing, like Chicken Wing says at 1832, it says, who supervises the social workers? So when stuff starts going bad, and they call, what does the police officers have to interview the social workers? They were there first. So what did you say to that person? Because there's certain things you don't say to a suicidal person. Okay, there's one thing that we never do. Like they say, I want to commit suicide, but I want to talk to my mother first. I want to talk to my wife first. Well, usually there's a reason. Are you going to say goodbye to them? You have to get more information as to why you want to talk to that person. Could it be you? Could you be mad at that mother? Could you be mad at that wife? And that's the reason you want to kill yourself in front of that person to make them feel guilty. So you just can't have these social workers go in and say things and bring things in. Oh, I want to talk to my mother. Okay, Ma, come on in. And the next thing you know, the person commits suicide in front of the mother. So it's just not de-escalation. There's all training that especially emergency service goes through, about handling emotionally disturbed people. So, and then when did the police officers say, all right, social workers, you got to go outside. This is now we're taking over, and they'll say, no, it's still our job or whatever. So, I mean, really, like Chicken Wing says, who do they work for? Do they work for the police department? Do they work for the city? Do we have authority over them? I mean, yeah, you could send them to every job in the world, but that doesn't mean that it's going to come out to a good final. I think it's going to be chaotic, especially in the beginning. And I think it was Hood. I think Hood X or Hard X Core or somebody mentioned it that do a pilot program. We did a pilot program. It was out in Staten Island, and it didn't work. They wanted police officers and ESU to stay a block away from an EDP job, let social workers go in, and then if anything happened, they would respond. It didn't work because so first of all, social workers were nervous about going in, and then they were immediately calling for the police. So you want to do teams like Ron had just mentioned, that's fine. All right. But make sure that they work for the police department and the police officers have the authority over them. So Marlon, I'm sorry I cut you off, but I just wanted to get that out because that's hard to my belief and things I did for almost 20 years in the emergency service unit. So
No, not at all. That was some great insight. I wasn't even aware that a similar pilot program was tested in Staten Island. But I'm looking at this list now, and I see next to trespassing, it says, or unwanted person calls, provided there is no threat of violence or weapons. I mean, how do they determine there's no weapons on a phone call? I mean, and my other thing is they're going to be paying these guys. Certainly, it's not going to be the same amount you pay a police officer, a trained police officer. First, how are you going to identify these people, and how are they going to be enthused? I mean, the thing is, are they going to be trained to conduct a Terry stop? How does that work? Or are they just going to be like, oh, take a walk, guy, you're here? Or what if a guy says, no, I live here. Oh, okay, sir. That's it. Yeah. And if that's the case, then they might as well just tell us up front that, hey, we're getting rid of broken windows and no more CompStat, because if that's the policy, then I just don't see how do you measure performance in the police department? How do you tell if we're doing our job if everything is this is like an official way for everything to be shit canned here,
What's another thing he's talking about doing? He's talking about expanding, and we've talked about this on all across the platform. He's talking about expanding the violence interrupter program. That's a program that we've talked about that has no matrix for success, that answers to the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, MOCJ, and they just report what they report. Oh, we stopped this amount of shootings. We did this, we did that. And they try to use the matrix of, well, shootings are down in this area and we have a violence interrupted program in that area. There's tens of millions of dollars that go into this program. And again, the matrix of success is they tell the city what they've done with no way to prove or disprove anything that they've done. They talk about how many meetings they've had with the community. They talk about all this stuff. They don't answer with the police. They don't work with the police. He wants to expand it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's easy, right? You could say, I'm doing a great job. If they ask me, I'm doing a great job, I'm absolutely doing a great job, you know? But unless you have performance indicators, measurement of success, I mean, what CompStat was all put on that, right? Jack Maples put that together saying, hey, let's put the police where the dots are on the map, and then we can measure the reduction in crime. So what's their measurement? That nothing was reported? What if nothing happened? What if nothing happened? Then it becomes a success. So if let's say they even push somebody into another precinct, right? If they said, oh, you guys got to leave, okay, I'll go another precinct, and then all of a sudden that precinct has no disputes on that particular block. Was it a success? No. All you did was displace it. So you have to have some sort of measurement of success. Otherwise, really, it didn't happen, right? If you can't put it pen to paper, it didn't happen. So I just think it's a self-serving thing. It's a throwing money to people that are saying they're doing a job. You know what? I'll do it. I'll be a violence interrupter in my neighborhood. Then I'll come back to New York City and let me interrupt some violence. I don't have to show what I did, but I'm going to say I did it. No documentation, right? So yeah, doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm all in for this. The people have voted and spoken. Yeah. I agree, but I can't in good conscience say that, hey, people voted for it, so it's going to work. We know from our experiences, from being in the streets, from being leaders of men and women in the streets, that this isn't going to work. We know what needs to be done to keep the people in the community safe, to keep the quality of life on the rise, not the decline. And the last three administrations, it's just been a downward spiral. And I don't see this. I thought we hit rock bottom. I thought we hit bottom enough. I had hoped that we hit bottom enough to do a bounce, like a Giuliani bounce, where we hit so low that the New York City said we need somebody like Giuliani to come in and get us out of this. But I was sorely mistaken. I admit it. I was mistaken. I didn't think that 1 million plus people could vote for socialism in New York City and think that it's going to make a positive change in their lives and the lives of everybody else in New York City. Oh, Marlon, welcome to the show.
I got to stay on brand, Ron.
Oh, I gotta stay on brand. Where's Mo? Where's Hassan Mo now?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that it's pretty ironic that the same people who keep harping on police accountability are now creating a civilian police department with no accountability at all, and no way for you to measure any sort of performance or just to tell how good of a job they're doing.
You know what's amazing? The unions that cover for the 911 operator, 911 operators, that they're not up in arms too, because there's going to be an accountability that, oh, you misdirected the call, you failed to ask the right question, and one of our social workers were stabbed when they walked in the door. That's going to be on their shoulders. I mean, what the union should be up in arms with that. I mean, because you know how many times that you respond to a job, oh, it's a it's a wellness check, and you knock on the door, and there's two people fighting. It's actually a domestic, right? It could be a violent domestic, but somebody else called and says, "Hey, I haven't heard from this person in a while." So you don't know what you can only be the information that's given on the phone and the questions that are asked. But if they're not giving the correct answers or the real answers, you could be directed to a call that has very a large amount of violence. And you know what? If I was a police officer right now, and I responded to one of these, calls, and the social workers already engaged, and now it got violent, I'm calling ESU. I'm not. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. This thing's out of control, and I don't even know what was said to that person. What were the promises that were made? Well, we're not going to cuff you. We're not going to do that. And then me as a police officer, I go to cuff them because now I'm going to take them to the hospital, and the person explodes. You told me I wasn't this, and reaches for a knife or whatever. I remember years ago, ESU would get to a call, and they would come in, and the person would be standing there. And the ESU guys would go, what's the problem? Oh, well, the person doesn't want to be cuffed. And then the ESU guy would be like, when did we give a person a choice whether they want to be cuffed or not? But you know what? These days, with CCRB, with everything else, if I was a police officer out there, I'm calling. Give me the army here, because I'm not taking this by myself, where I'm going to lose my job, possibly get fired, have CCRB adjudicate and discipline me. Forget it.
That's
the house of cards.
That's my next point here. But Simply E puts up a point, and listen, Aria pointed out. I know I'm behind in the chat, and sometimes I'm reading the comments and I'm associating to the wrong portion of the conversation, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to keep up with it as much as possible. But Simply E puts in there, will these people have qualified immunity? That's a really good question. That's really quick. And also, the Department of Community Safety are not police officers. Are they get involved in an altercation because it gets ugly? And what happens if they choke somebody out?
Yeah.
Are they held to the same standard under the diaphragm law? They're not allowed to hold somebody down and put any pressure on their chest. They're not allowed to try to save their lives when they have no other forms of defense, and they wind up choking somebody out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But if I was a social worker and it got violent, I'd run the fuck out of that apartment. You wouldn't see me even stay in there. I'm not trying to take anybody down. I'm not trying to do anything. If I was going to do this, I would tell social workers, you shouldn't even go inside, because you know what, you just created a barricaded EDP with hostages. That's what you just created as soon as they go inside.
Yeah. And Rob, you walked us right into the next point that I wanted to talk about. Marlon, anything else on that part before we move into the CCRB portion?
No, I think we covered it well.
Yeah. I mean, we're an hour and 45 in, guys. A little longer than we want to. We've got over 700 people watching on the various platforms. Again, I recommend you jump over to YouTube, get involved in the interactive chat, even though I'm a little bit behind. But yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about CCRB, Rob. You mentioned it. You talked. You brought it up. It's a big concern for all members of the service, all uniformed members of the service, right? The Department of Community Safety is not going to be held accountable by the CCRB because they're not uniformed members of the service. Just like civilian members of the NYPD aren't held accountable. They don't fall under the purview of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. But what's the Civilian Complaint Review Board going to do? What's it going to look like? Again, we'll go to the breakdown of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. The Civilian Complaint Review Board has 15 members on the board. 5 members are chosen by the City Council. You see how the City Council is. The City Council is predominantly Democratic and Democratic Socialist. And as you see, after last night, we actually lost a Republican seat in the Bronx in the City Council, which flipped over to DSA. So you have 5 members that are appointed by the City Council. You have 5 members that are appointed directly by the mayor. You have 3 members that are selected by the police commissioner. And these 3 members are the only members that are allowed to have any law enforcement background. They're selected by the police commissioner, but technically appointed by the mayor. So if the mayor doesn't like that selection, it's not happening. So right there, you have 8 appointments by the mayor. You have 1 by the department, Jumani Williams, and 1 is the chairperson, who is co-selected, co-appointed by the mayor and the city council. So you have 9 selections of 15 that the mayor has direct responsibility for. So what do you think that the CCR board is going to look like? They're going to reflect his ideologies. That's why he's going to pick them. And we already know he can apologize and give his fake apologies and everything else. We know from many, many, many posts that he has made over the last 4 years, 5 years, of what he thinks about the NYPD, and that he thinks that they are racist. He thinks that they are abusive. He thinks, I mean, look at what was the video from 2023, right? The boot of the NYPD is on your neck. It's tied. The laces are tied by the IDF. I mean, now you have a person that's now going to be leading this city, and he's going to be responsible to make these selections, because there are vacancies in the CCRB, and there are people that are out of their term that are still in place because they haven't been replaced. So he absolutely has the ability to make up the CCRB. And what has he also said? He's also a proponent of taking away final disciplinary discretion from the police commissioner. He doesn't have that authority. That has to come in the form of a city charter change with the city council. But I think he's got the city council on his side. And there's also a bill that's being, that's in committee in Albany with the state legislature to change that, to take away the disciplinary authority from the police commissioner. So basically, you're going to have the CCRB, who's going to be the judge, jury, and executioner of the police.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious how that's going to work out with the push to recruit these I think it's 5K officers. I mean, the CCRB's voting record is large. Most of the members, with the exception of the 3.
Time out.
Mm-hmm.
The 5K officers?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the ones that Mayor Eric Adams just put into the budget that Mondami is going to take out come January 1st.
Good point.
Right? We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
He puts it in, but Mondami's not going to back it up.
Good point. Yeah.
So upping the head count by 5,000 is not going to happen, because Mondami has clearly stated, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but Mondami has clearly stated that he is not interested in increasing the head count of the NYPD. So he's going to have a hard enough time maintaining the current head count, because like Chief Shell has mentioned on many of his, reports recently and in his X post, come January 1, 4,000 tenured NYPD members are eligible for retirement. Now, I'm not saying 4,000 people are going to run to the door because Zohan Mondami is the mayor. They're going to, they're not going to just give it all up and go. Some might see the writing on the wall and say, it's time to leave. But once all his plans get implemented, I think we're going to have a hard time. So I wouldn't count those 5,000, because he's not doing it. He's just not doing it. Sorry. No.
That's a great point. So, which brings up the problem again of the Department of Community Safety and the fact that they're going to need at least a handful of cops to go with these people to some of these calls, but also again, most of these people, their voting records are in the high 80s or low 90s. So how much further are they going to be pushed to? Is it going to, do they expect like 99%, high 90s? In which case, we're going to run out of cops very quickly. Yeah. So I good luck to Mamdani if he thinks this, if he wants to do that. I don't see how it's going to be implemented.
First of all, with the implementation of CCRB, and now we know that qualified immunity will never be returned, and all the other problems. I don't know why anybody wouldn't leave at this point. That if my kid was on the job or I was on the job, there's other opportunities out there in other states where you can get signing bonuses, you can get treated like an adult, you can respond to jobs and be in charge and do what a police officer does. To me, this is detrimental to the police department. It's going to be you're just going to have a bunch of what I would consider police administrative aides, right? The people that take the reports in the precinct. That's all cops are going to be. They're going to be PAAs. They're going to drive around. They're going to have their. When I was taught on the midnights, right? We would drive around in an RMP, a radio motor patrol, police car. We'd have the windows down, and I would be freezing. I would be freezing, and I'd ask the senior cop, "Yo, I'm freezing," And he's like, "Well, you keep the windows down because what do? You listen for breaking a glass. You listen for dogs barking. You listen for people, the chatter that's not supposed to be. It's a vacant alley. Why is there people chattering there? All the things that you do." But you know what? If I was a police officer now, I'd have my windows all the way up. I'd probably have some, I'm older, so I'd put some rock station on. I'd have the radio on a little bit, and I'd be driving around. And when I got the call, I'd go and take the report. I'd take a half an hour. I'd make the most beautiful, UF 61, uniform, complaint report. I'd make it really nice, and that's what I would do. And like Sleepy Joe's saying, they already do. And I agree 100%. I wouldn't, Eric Dim always talks about intrusive policing. I think January 1st, that is done. That is dead. I would just drive around and I would enjoy it and just take it easy, because that's what they want you to do. Let the social workers go ahead, go. Why don't you take every call? Why don't we have drones drop off 61s to robbery victims, let them fill it out, take the drone and fly it back to the precinct and get them a report number? That's what I would do. I'm sorry. Or either that or I would leave and go to another department where I could be a police officer. If I had over 15 years, I would stay the 5 years to get to 20. If I had less than 5, I would stay till like 5 so I can vest. But geez, I would be gone. I don't see why anybody would want to stay. You're gambling your career. You're gambling any property you own, any money that's in your. They'll be suing you for what's in your deferred comp or your 457. That's it. That's what it's going to come down to. I'm sorry. At this point, we're on the Titanic and we're down at the bottom. That's it. We already cracked in 2, and that's it. You're not on a lifeboat anymore. So I'm sorry. I had to throw that out there. Ron?
No, listen, I agree, and it's to a point where we're going to be a completely responsive police department once again, and that was the problem in the early 90s, right? Is that the police department, was a completely responsive police department. We responded to the crime. We took a report, and maybe somebody would look at it and say, hey, there's a problem over here, so we're going to put some extra cops there. And then Comstock came into place, and we became a proactive police department. We tried to be predictive, to use a newer term, right? A predictive police department where we could possibly predict where the violence might be and the crime might be and deploy our resources to such areas. And it worked. And there were problems. And again, we don't sit here and say that before some people start blasting me in the chat, we abused the 250s. I totally wholeheartedly agree that the 250s and the stop, which is the stop, question, and frisks, right? Stop, question, and possibly frisk reports were overused, abused for just putting dots on the map. We've talked about this in the past. So COs don't get yelled at because of their burglaries or their robberies are too high. Agreed. Great tool, used and abused. 100%, not denying that. But we were a proactive police department, and we brought crime down. We brought the murder levels down to unimaginable numbers, from over 3,000 to 300 a few years ago. In a city of 11 million people, right? 9 documented, 2 million undocumented, having 300 or 500 homicides. Listen, one is too many. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here touting 500 dead people, but it's just amazing where we were, where we got to, and where we've been brought back to. And now, how do you blame them? When you have a mayor that was a captain of police who went up through the ranks. Listen, we all know his police career. He wasn't a very proactive person. However, he was a police officer in transit and in the city. He was an executive for a very short period of time. Right? And for him to come out when a video comes out of an altercation on Staten Island where a teenager is assaulting a police officer and he has to use force back against that teenager, and he makes a call that that officer needs to get suspended or modified because it didn't look good. And this is somebody that's supposed to have a perspective of policing. Now, take that incident through the lens of a democratic socialist. How are these officers going to do their job when they're going to be in fear that now somebody who has no concept of policing is going to be looking at this and has the fate of my world in their hands?
So now, on top of the Department of Community Safety, we're seeing measures being put in place that's going to, dissuade cops from taking proactive measures. So you got to wonder where the city is going to be like, and on top of that, like we said, you're removing the accountability and any metrics to measure, reductions in crime or police performance. So I don't know where the city is going to be like in terms of law enforcement in a couple months.
No, I mean it's insane, and a lot of people are saying, Adams, was he a captain? What was he, like a couple weeks or stuff? I mean, really, no experience with anything as that, and he just kind of like, proclaims, I was a captain of police and things like that. All right, so but
We went over his career.
What did you really do? You know who I give credit to, and I think we were going to talk about it a little bit. The fire commissioner, right? He resigned today. He put his letter of resignation into Mayor Adams because he don't want to have anything to do with the next administration. Because I know you have to give like a 30-day. So I mean, you think about it. He's a Jewish fire commissioner, and he hands his resignation in because he's not going to deal with it. And what's going to happen to the fire department? Well, I don't know. The fire department is pretty solid. I think that I'm sure somebody will step up. What's going to happen to Kaz? I hope Kaz was probably already looking for a new job. Somebody was just saying in the chat that there's a possibility that Ronnie Harrison might be the next deputy commissioner of public safety. So that's interesting. But I don't know. I would give more credit to Jessica Tisch, whose family donated to Andrew Cuomo to step down too. But I mean, people have their egos and stuff, so we'll see. But I give a lot of credit to the fire commissioner. He's not going to tolerate it. you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we were going to bring that up because that comes with what we're talking about. We're already hearing about other people that are putting in their papers in the police department once last night happened, and they saw that they have no future in the police department. Upper executives that have spent their adult lives, for making the betterment of the city because they know what Zohan Mandami thinks and what he has said he's going to do with disbanding certain units, and just they're not going to have the support. He apologized, and his apology is basically, I'm going to work with the police department on public safety. Yeah, you're the mayor. You have to work with the police department on public safety. Public safety is almost the number one concern of your constituents. Does it matter?
Yeah.
I don't know. Go ahead, Mom.
No. I was just saying. I was just agreeing with you.
Not 92 Charlie says, shouldn't the position of Deputy Commissioner of Public Safety encompass FD2, not just PD? From what I understand, the Deputy Commissioner of Public Safety only does control FD with other agencies and not PD.
Right.
So I think it's the opposite. I mean, will that change? Will the mayor, with Zohan, will he change that and make it? He might, so, interesting point, but I don't know, I know there was one in the past. Do we even need one? I know GI Bro said earlier, I always look angry. I know it is.
I'm just getting up to that.
I won't be as angry as John, but I'm very sad, very sad about a police department that I joined. I came in '87. Our hands were tied. Don't make narcotics arrests. Don't do anything on the street level narcotics. And then Giuliani came in, changed around. So we're a part of that whole culture of making the city safe. Can't tell you how many times somebody that was, you'd see somebody on the street and they'd whisper to you, "Thank you, officer. I appreciate all you're doing." They wouldn't say it publicly, but they'd say it privately and whisper, and it was a good feeling. So it's sad that the city's turning into. Do we? Yeah, like Ron said earlier, do we want Mandami to make the city great? Yeah, absolutely. If he can do it, let him do it. But I just don't see a path, especially with the killing the police department every which way by taking things to a whole nother level. So
yeah, I'm trying to keep up. You guys are on fire in the chat. We really appreciate it. I'm trying to keep up. So what do you think? Like, this leads into like the morale thing, right? We talk about the morale has declined throughout the job. I think CCRB is such a big weight on everyone's shoulders walking out the door every day, and it's just going to get worse with that. But overall morale, I say, starts at the top and having confidence in your leadership. I don't know that the rank and file of the police department are going to have confidence in this city hall leadership. So let's just touch on it quickly, because then we got to get into that second. We got to get into another topic. It's really important. We're already 2 hours and 4 minutes in. We wanted to do less than 2 hours today, but the PC and assembling a new upper echelon in the police department. He has said that he's going to ask Commissioner Tisch to stay on. Now, up until the debate, he hadn't spoken to Commissioner Tisch about that. He just made an announcement that he's willing to keep on Commissioner Tisch, which he doubled down on today, that he's going to ask Commissioner Tisch. And Eric Adams couldn't expand on that. He doesn't know if they've had a conversation. She has kept out of politics, to her credit. When she was asked by Katie Honan last week, and she said, "I'm not going to discuss anything to do with any political races," and credit to her. Kudos to her for that, because you're supposed to stay apolitical as the police commissioner and as the police department. And the problem with this administration was. It was so intertwined and enmeshed that it was just no good. So, do you think Commissioner Tisch stays on?
Marlon, you want? Go
I,
ahead.
I that's a very curious question. I'm not sure. I think there's pressure coming from different sides to compel Zohan to keep her and to push her to stay. But I think that's a tough question because I think Zohan has an agenda at play here. And, you know, you go back to the community safety. And I think that's going to bring a lot of conflict between the police commissioner and whoever's running that department. Because in a lot of ways, that is a rival police department in itself. And curiously enough,
go ahead, Marlon. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say the Post just dropped an article about that, by the way. So
About what?
I think she stays on. I think she stays on, but she only stays in 6 months. Like they're saying in the chat, 6 months she'll be gone. She'll get fed up enough that she'll resign or she'll be told to leave, because I think that Zoran's going to want to put somebody that is has the allegiance to him and only him, and doesn't have anything, any other type of agenda. I also think, like Ron had mentioned earlier, that leadership starts on the top. Leadership under de Blasio was Shea. Shea was a coward, in my opinion, and he bowed to de Blasio in every way. I was in PC meetings where things that were said there was horrific about, how many people we have vaccinated, all the other crap that he talked about, because the mayor wanted that information. So yeah, if the leader, whoever takes over the police department, if Tisch stays or somebody else comes in, if they bow down to the mayor and don't stand tall and don't stand for what's good for the police department and the rank and file, then there will be nobody following him. There will be no confidence in him or her, and nobody will want to do anything, especially when they're told. And Ron, you and I have spoke about it before, right? The cops will do anything you want them to do, as long as you give them the ability to do it and the reasoning behind it. So if it's just, hey, because the mayor said so, it's going to fall on deaf ears and nobody's going to do it. So
I haven't. You just sent me this, Marlon. I haven't had the opportunity to read the article, so I'm not sure exactly what it says in the article. But yeah, the Post is reporting that she hasn't gotten a job offer from Mondami, even though he says that he's going to keep her on, and he said it again this morning. Insiders are urging her to stay on. I don't know. I think it would be good for her to stay on, to have some continuity in the transition. But I agree. I don't know that she'll stay on once he starts implementing policies that we know she doesn't agree with. And as the police commissioner, it's your job to, as any commissioner, it's your job to try to accomplish the goals and, the edicts of your boss. Your boss is the mayor.
And what Reed says at 1912 hours, he says, Madami wants a yes man or woman for his policy, and executives will do whatever the mayor wants so they can get a chance to move up in rank. And I agree 100%. That is the biggest problem. Like I always say, I talk about, integrity for an executive integrity. I mean, at what point do you say, no, that I'm not going to do that because I don't believe in it? Stand up for what is right, but it's never done, because everybody, they hold that carrot in front of you. Oh, get a promotion. Other people are getting promoted. You got to kiss the ring and all that other stuff. And that's the downfall of it. And that's why, I know Curtis had plans about, promotions and things that he was going to set in motion. That's not going to happen here. This is going to be, favoritism and nepotism. You're going to see a lot of promotions that are just going to come out of the blue, in my opinion, under Zoran.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. All right. Anything else? Think that, listen, we're going to be discussing this. I know the Finest Unfiltered, New York's Finest Retired Unfiltered podcast, John and Eric and Marlon, that this is going to be a topic of conversation, obviously, throughout the near future. We'll see step by step as things are going. Sorry about that. Step by step as things are going and appointments are made and policies are discussed further with the mayor-elect. Obviously, that'll be discussed. Sal Greco, always talking on the politics. It'll be discussed. So, we're far from done by talking about Mayor-elect Mamdani and how it's going to affect the NYPD. So with that, let's move on to some news that came out today, which is why we asked Marlon to join us, because this directly affects him. So as they had the show this morning, John got some information that he heard that the mayor was going to make an announcement today that he's going to invite all fired municipal workers to come back and get their jobs back before the end of the day. And then shortly thereafter, this press release came out. It says, Mayor Adams offers former employees who were terminated for refusing COVID vaccines second opportunity to return to city employment. And in the small print, offer includes the right to return to former title and salary without retroactive compensation for time not served. So, Marlon, when you heard that, I know you spoke about it this morning, but talk to our audience. And for those, I think everybody does know, but, Marlon, his moniker there is at Fire Detective, because Marlon was an intelligence detective with the NYPD. He refused to take the vaccine during the mandate. He was terminated without any due process, without any trial in the trial room, and actually without any notification. He kind of found out through the backdoor ways of calling up and finding out he's no longer in the computer that he was terminated, and then got a letter in the mail. So, Marlon, why don't you tell us, since this directly affects you, what do you think? Where do you think this is coming from? What do you think of it for the masses, and then how it affects you?
Yes. So I'm once again disappointed in it, because I wish the city would stop playing games. And I think, unfortunately, this is more so for Eric Adams' legacy than it is to actually right the wrongs of the terminations. I think for the general public, the problem with this situation is that there are a lot of people that are in different situations. There's people like me that got fired. There's people like John that got forced out on the verge of being terminated themselves, and it varies depending on which department you're in. And there have been people who've lost their houses. There was a gentleman in the Department of Education that was homeless for a while. And certainly for him, I think he may not have a choice but to try and do this. But the problem here is that there's no offers for back pay for lost time. And so in my case, if I go back, I will have to do 4 extra years. I've lost out on a lot of money. I've lost out on contributing to my pension for that time. I've lost out on overtime. I've lost a lot. And I don't think it's in my interest at this time to come back under these terms. The other thing is that this is basically the same terms as the last time in 2023, when the department first dropped the mandate and said you could come back. The problem with that is they offered no back pay and no way to recover your time. And they told you have to sign a waiver in the process. And I suspect there's going to be another waiver in this process, because, again, what I believe is really happening is Eric Adams is trying to save his legacy, and they're trying to mitigate the any lawsuits that they may face. And what they want to do is put you in an uncomfortable situation where you come back under their terms, you don't recover what you've lost, and they still have their discretion because there's also a DCAS a document that's going about, which it says there's going to be a virtual public hearing on the 19th of November where they're going to discuss this further. So I think it's basically to put you in an uncomfortable situation to come back under their terms and not regain all that you've lost in the from the last couple of years. And like I said, a waiver is coming in this. They're just not telling you yet, because back in 2023 they didn't tell you at the beginning of the process that a waiver is coming. I only found out from other people who reached that part of the process already.
No, yeah, on the surface, it seems, oh, it's great, right? If you don't delve into it, you say, oh, maybe Adams came to his senses and wants to bring people back. And all right, if I don't get the back pay and I don't accept the, my seniority and things like that, I can get back on the job. But like you said, then I got to do these extra years. I would question, can you buy that years back? How they have that buyback program when you do other, work for the city and other aspects, or in the state. Sometimes you're able to buy that back. And then I would definitely want to consult an attorney, because by me signing this waiver, I signing my rights away to a lawsuit. And what's the legal standing with that? Is that a legal document? Because it's kind of like they're forcing you to do this. It's almost like, hey, it's like a quid pro quo, right? If you sign this, if you come back to the police department, we'll give you your job back, but you gotta, you can't sue us, and you lose anything for your back pay and stuff. So you're kind of signing things away. And what happens if you go back, Marlon? You go back, and then other people don't, and then they win the lawsuit. Do you get that back pay now because of the lawsuit, or do they say, well, you signed the waiver, Marlon, I'm sorry, you don't get that money? So it seems, like I said, on the onset, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. They're doing it again. But yeah, like you said, you really have to delve into it and understand it, because that waiver, that could change anything. It's not fair. It's almost like they're trying to slip something by you. Oh yeah, come back. Well, and what? So Adams can say, well, guess what? At the end of my mayoral, I brought people back. I did the right thing. But no, not really.
Let's look at, this is the waiver from the previous offer to come back that Marlon was talking about. And this is a fill in the blank. You have to fill it out, and you have to sign it and have it notarized and everything else, right? So it says, know that I, it would be Marlon Bethel, in consideration of my resignation to the NYPD class civil service title of blah, 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 hereby release and discharge the city of New York, the city of New York City, the New York City Police Department, NYPD, and the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, and all past and present employees, representatives, and agents of the city of New York, all the legal mumbo jumbo, right? From any and all claims, liabilities, or causes of action, obligations, damages, grievances, and liabilities for back pay, civil service rights and status arising out of the termination of my employment on X date by the NYPD for the period of dismissal. The undersigned has read the foregoing waiver and release and fully understand it. So yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. You are waiving all of your rights. There are lawsuits that are out there. There's judgments that have been made on behalf of the fired workers in New York City that are on appeal in New York State Supreme Court. So if Hood May is saying don't sign the waiver, but if you don't sign the waiver, you don't get rehired. And again, this hasn't been released yet. It still just came out this morning. So it hasn't been released that they're going to have this waiver attached to the rehire process, but I don't see how they don't. And how do you, like Marlon said, he gave up so much that can never be, even if he got back pay and time served, it's not enough, because the way the pension system works, and the reason that, you know, your pension can, you know, it goes, an actuary figures out, you know, my pension, I paid more or less into my pension because I got on when I was 26 than a 21-year-old, right? They paid a little bit more into their pension because their life expectancy is more, right? But you're getting a certain amount because of the compounding effect of the money that's contributed throughout the years and throughout your career. And it's based on 20 years, and you retire at 20 years. Anything over that is an overage, right? Which you're allowed to recapture at the end or keep in and get a higher pension. For the 3 years that Marlon's been out, Marlon has not contributed to the pension. Therefore, it has not compounded. Therefore, he has lost on the interest that would have been there. I'm not going to get into your financials, but there's a question. I had a conversation with John earlier, and I'm not asking you to answer this question, but I have a question is, you know, those that were terminated, when you're terminated, you don't get a pension. People don't understand that. There's a difference from people that retire, that left, they call a vested interest retirement. I'm leaving before my 20th anniversary. I'm retiring early. And upon my anniversary of what would have been my 20th anniversary, I could begin collecting my pension at that reduced rate because I no longer contributed for whatever that time period was in between. So it's obviously going to be lesser of a pension. And I don't get what's called the variable supplement, which is, you know, a benefit that fully vested NYPD members get every December because of a deal made when the pension system bailed out the city years and years ago. So now when you're terminated, you don't get a pension. You get refunded the pension contributions that you made with interest. So now what happens to, and I'm assuming that's what happened. I don't know if that's what happened, but if that's what happened, so now people that needed that money to live on have to somehow come up with that money to replenish the money that they had contributed and had been now given back. So there's just so many twists and turns in this. And again, Marlon, I'm not asking you, you know, but it's just something that came to my mind, you know, because people always talk about, oh yeah, your pension, Marlon, your pension, Marlon. They don't realize you were fired. You were terminated. You don't get a pension. It's just like as if you did something illegal, were arrested and terminated, right? That's why, you know, you were terminated non-disciplinary. Oh, thank you for putting the comma non-disciplinary upon my termination. But you were still terminated from the New York City Police Department, which means you lose all benefits. You lose medical benefits, right? Because even a vested interest retirement, once they hit that 20th anniversary, they get the medical benefits of a retiree. Marlon and those other NYPD employees and other civil servants have none of that. None. They lost all rights and privileges to any pension when they were terminated. So there's so much more to this, and it goes so much deeper that it's not just a matter of, all right, I'll take my job back, I'll pick up where I left off, and I'll move forward and make it to, you know, finish out a couple of years or whatever the case may be. And that may work for some other people, you know? And again, this is a termination. What happens to those people that were constructively terminated? What happens to those people that were constructively terminated because they vested out? John McCarry vested out because he had 18 years on. So instead of being terminated and losing everything, he vested. So he lost certain pension benefits like the variable supplement. He lost the last 2 years of compounded interest on all those 18 years of contributions that would have increased substantially his pension, because believe me, when the money starts getting compounded at the end, it's a lot of money getting compounded. So the interest is there. So I know I'm going on long with this, but it's just, it's so important, and people may not understand it. And I don't completely understand it, but I think I have some understanding of it. And it's just, to me, It's such a deep conversation that needs to be had where some people that vested, I don't know if this applies because they weren't technically terminated.
Yeah. Which goes back to the point that they should have ended this immediately in 2023 and just said everybody back, because the longer it drags on, it complicates things a lot further and makes things a lot worse. And I just want to also point out that in the DCAS document, it says that you have 30 days from the effective date, I guess, of this rule. So just like in 2023, they're going to give you a short time to make a life-altering decision, because though I may not have moved, there's some people who sold their house, moved to Florida. So now you're given 30 days to begin this process to come back. And the other thing is, if you begin the process, you have to go through it, because for the sake of if you have a lawsuit, I don't think it's going to look good if you begin the process and then you abandon the process, because it basically looks like you were given the opportunity to come back and you yourself pulled out of it. So people have to make a solid decision to engage in the process, and you only have 30 days to shift your life back to New York City to do it. So the whole thing is just unfair, in my opinion.
And like Snake Pliskin says, you should have talked to your attorney, right? I mean, you got to talk. They want you to sign something. You really need to listen to your attorney for that information. And like Neil S. had mentioned earlier in the chat, what about a probationary period? Are you put back in on a probationary period? Because when you left, you were already off probation, and now they're bringing you back. And will they use things that you've said on the podcast and things that you've put on Twitter and on your social media platform? Who knows how vindictive, because the police department is very vindictive. They don't like to lose, and they'll fire you, and then they'll let you sue and use up all your money because they have deep pockets. They don't care. I'll put as many attorneys, whatever. It's nothing to them. But for us to sue, you're shelling out money. You're talking to your attorney all the time. So it could actually drain you at that point. So yeah, it's a very difficult decision. And to Ron's points earlier, you're 457 and things like that. What happens with all of that? What happens if I don't even know if you were afforded the opportunity to take a final loan, the money that you contributed. So all if that money was just taken from you, that's BS also, because if you're doing the ITHP, the increased take home pay, or the 50%, are you able to put that back in, and all that interest that would have accumulated, you've lost that too. So I mean, they should at least like you guys always say, Marlon, John, reinstate and compensate. That's the way it should be. That would be the fair thing to do.
Marlon, Reed is asking you, terminated for non-disciplinary reasons, should have been given a good guy letter to seek employment and security. Were you given a good guy letter?
No, I have no privileges. My firearm privileges are gone. I had to turn them in, and there's some buried somewhere in the department right now, if they didn't destroy them.
If they didn't destroy them, right, because you're no longer a member of the service, so they're not going to give you that courtesy of holding them for the extended period of time. Yeah, they're
destroyed. Yeah, no way. They're not keeping them.
I don't know. I don't know. It's there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot of different variables that come into it, and I'm sure you guys will be discussing it further on the roundtable on Friday. Because John's in transit back to Florida right now. I don't know if he's listening in the car as he's going down 95, but listen, we know there's a lawsuit, and again, you didn't sign away your rights the first time. Some people did, and there's another twist to this also, and again, we're 2.5 hours in, so but it's just so important that when you come back, because it's a break in service, they will do an investigation on what you did during your break in your service. They'll do a character investigation to make sure you didn't do anything illegal, you didn't have any illegal jobs and everything like that. You didn't have any negative derogatory information. You didn't turn into a bad guy. You went out there and started beating people up and getting arrested, DWI collars and so forth. That, all these other things. You're also probably going to have to go and have some type of psychological evaluation by the psychological assessment section. And a conversation I had with John earlier about that is this separation from the department weighed heavily on people. And a lot of people had mental health issues afterwards, suffered from stress, anxiety, depression. I've heard of people that have taken their lives. I can't confirm that, but I have heard of that, and I don't doubt it. It's such a huge thing. People that give their life and their soul into a career, and it gets ripped apart because of religious or medical feelings and not wanting to give up those rights and those convictions, and that just gets ripped away from you. And we talk about people have become homeless because of it. So people have sought help. So now, how is that going to affect it? There's just so much more to it than just, hey, I'm going to get my job back.
You know what's sad too? They literally, they didn't give you any time, right? They just told you terminated. And now they're saying you got 30 days to make a life-altering decision, like you just said. You could have moved out of the state. You were doing another job or anything else, or you could be a stay-home dad and watching the kids. And all of a sudden they say you have 30 days to make a decision to come back. I mean, you didn't. How is that fair? You're like literally you're putting your hands around my neck and say, make a decision now because this is it. And it's so unfair.
And he's saying that he's making this offer. Now, there's going to be timestamps, like you said, Marlon, right? Now, is this going to have to be done before December 31st? This whole process of people reapplying and everything? Because Mondami said on The Finest Unfiltered that he's not for reinstate and compensate. That he believes that the city had the right under the mandate to terminate people, and he feels that they need to have that authority in case of a future mandate, a pandemic, whatever the case may be, so that they can maintain that control and have the authority to do it once again. So he absolutely said he feels for Marlon, but he will not rehire Marlon.
Yeah.
So what's the time frame on this? Does it all have to be done? Everything has to be done? We're November 5th, people. We're November 5th, and this drops. There's a public hearing when, Marlon?
November 19th.
On this?
Yes.
So which means that after the public hearing, nothing can be officially put into place until after that public hearing. So it's impossible. This is absolutely going to carry over into the Mondami administration.
Yeah. And if I may, the other thing is that after the 19th, we head into the Thanksgiving holiday season.
Sure.
So, nothing is getting accomplished until people really get back into the first week of December. And then you have, if the policy is implemented, it still takes time, because last time when I called personnel, they told me the process is going to take a while because they also need approval budget-wise from DCAS to allocate to getting the personnel back. So this process is going to take well over 30 days to happen, and that takes us into the new year. So we're getting really close to the new, a new administration coming in, and I just don't think there's enough time for this to be implemented. If they really, even if they had a serious, this was a serious effort on their part.
Yeah, no, if they let it go into the next administration, it's not going to happen. They're not going to. He's going to drop the whole thing, and they'll say, "Oh, just continue to sue it." And so if you're not back on the job at that point, and who knows, you could go back on the job, and then that they could still say, "Oh, we don't want you back," or whatever. You never know. So I just real quick, I just want to address what Chicken Wing said at 1936. Sergeant Boss got fired, sued, won, and came back and made sergeant. That's Kenny Boss from the Diallo shooting. I don't think he ever got terminated. I think he was on dismissal probation, and they took his guns. That shows you how evil the department can be. They took his guns and never made him restricted or anything else. They just said they gave him an ID card that said no firearms. So actually, I don't even think it said no firearms. It didn't say anything. So, but they just took his firearms away from him. So I know Kenny, he was smart. He went and bought a firearm and said, well, my ID card says I'm not restricted. I can't have firearms. So that was an uproar. They said, well, we got to take the gun from you. And then Kenny was in ESU, and then he studied and he became a sergeant. And then the department had to decide now. So they put him in aviation, and I think he became a pilot. He did really well. And I knew Kenny from a long time. He was a great guy, but the job is so evil. It's just an example of how they just tried to push him down. So if I was to give Marlon any opinion, I would say, A, talk to your attorney. B, I would look for, I wouldn't go back, because they can still be evil to you. And I would say, you know what? Unless you're going to come to my terms of the lawsuit, the reinstate and compensate, and give me my time back, give me all the money that I had, then I wouldn't do it, because I truthfully don't trust the department at all. I've seen what it does and what it can do, and it's just they're not fair. And like I said again, they don't like to be embarrassed, and they don't like to be told they were wrong. So you really have to be very cautious. But my heart goes out to you, Marlon, because I feel bad for you, because I think the job, they did you dirty. You did your job. You did your due diligence. Not a disciplinary problem. And they just arbitrarily fire you for your beliefs. It's wrong. And I know, all of that BS of accommodations. When they got too many, this is what happened. When they got too many requests for accommodations, then they started checkmark, deny. They weren't even looking at them, right? We know there was some cop that was just handing them out, denied. So they weren't doing it, and it was sad. It was sad that they did that, And we know what happened, in the long run with this whole, COVID. So I mean, it was just sad that they bowed down. They took a knee, right? We talk about Monahan taking a knee, and I'll tell you that Jimmy Shea, the police commissioner, took a knee, and they bowed down. So I feel bad for you, Marlon. So my heart goes out to you, brother.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, Chief.
100%. Hey, listen, everybody. Why don't you also just bring it up? We're 2 hours 37 minutes into the show. A lot of stamina today. Shout out to everybody in the chat, and we really appreciate all of the interaction, like we say time and time again, especially with our show. We're very interactive with our chat. We try to involve you as much as possible. I try to keep up on it, and it kind of interferes with our flow sometimes. It really does. Rob and I talk about this offline, how sometimes it interrupts with the flow of the show, but we really feel it's important that we get you guys involved. We also want you to check out that QR code in the upper right, your upper left corner over here, right here. Am I pointing the right direction? That's the way I'm looking at it.
I don't know. It's on. Let's see.
Am I pointing at
the other way?
When you're looking at the screen, am I pointing at the damn box?
No, the other way, opposite direction, Ron. Yes, right there.
Okay, so I'm screen reversed. That's why. All right, so let's.
There you go.
If you're on the computer, it's weird to me because it's the opposite. I should take a picture.
Get your finger off there. I can't take a shot of it.
But hit the QR code. It'll take you to www.thefinestunfiltered.com. It's the website for the Finest Unfiltered Network. It'll give you a breakdown of all the shows. It'll give you a bio of.
Sleepy Joe says you're pointing at me. Stop it.
You know what it is? I have my screen reversed so that you can read the things behind me. So it's the opposite. It's weird. I raise my right hand. It's on the left side. It's weird. But yeah, so hit that QR code or go to www.thefinestunfiltered.com. Again, it's got a breakdown of all the shows. It's got a bio for all of the members of the Finest Unfiltered. Tell you a little bit about us. You could subscribe on the bottom. Scroll down to the bottom of any one of those pages. You could subscribe to the newsletter that comes out every Monday, plus any letters that are published. If anybody's interested in publishing an article on the Finest Unfiltered newsletter, you can send it in via the website. It'll be vetted, and then possibly it'll go up. So, we want you to follow through with that. We're going to move on to and Marlon, anything else on this?
No. That was it. I think we covered it well.
Right. All right. So we're going to move on to a segment called Ask an Executive. So we'll make this one Ask an Executive or an Intel Detective. And any questions that you have, throw up in the chat right now. The chat's been on fire. There was a few questions throughout that we may have hit, we may not have hit. But if you have any questions for us, a lot of times you don't have access to executives. Here you have access to two executives with over 65 years of experience and over 40 years of executive experience. So here's your opportunity. Ask us any questions on topic, off topic. We'll be glad to answer it. If you have any questions offline, you want to send it to us, and stay anonymous, because we obviously know that active members can't really get interactive in the chat. Send any of those questions to the executiveperspective@gmail.com, or you could DM us on X at Exec Perspective. That's us on X. Give us a follow also on the Executive Perspective at Exec Perspective. You can DM us or you can email us. So let's get to that real quick. We have any questions out there? Because I was off that.
Well, I had QC Beast at 1915. He asked, does SRG and khaki pants survive 2026? So I'll quickly say that I know that the commanding officer of SRG posted earlier today on Facebook that he was retiring 35 years. So, I mean, that could be an indication of his feelings. I don't know personally if he's thinking that, but I truthfully don't think either one of them survive. The khaki pants or SRG completely disbanded. They're the boogeyman as far as Zoran thinks, and protests will be out of control and the city will be out of control. You wouldn't even be able to drive down the streets anymore. That's my take on that there, QC Beast.
I personally don't think that they're going to totally disband the SRG. I think they're going to try to repurpose them. I don't think we can do away with the SRG. They are disorder control, right? They are our line of defense. And he may try to change the mandate and strongly enforce the settlement agreement that we were forced into under de Blasio and then signed off on by Eric Adams. So I think that they're going to be restricted. Their hands are going to be tied, very much so. But I don't think that they're going to do away with that.
Just think about his base, though. Think about the people that supported him and all those protesters, and he does that. And what does he do? Then people like, oh, yeah, Zoran, he's for the people. So, Marlon, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I don't think he can. I don't think he can, considering how much of those how much of that activity we've seen lately, and I don't think that's stopping either, regardless of whoever's in City Hall. It's been it's working to galvanize the left wing of the Democrat Party. So I don't think it's going to stop either.
All right. Chicken Wing's got a question. Did you ever have a CD that you guys just threw out because you knew it wasn't right? 100%. 100%. There's certain ways that you could address it. It depends if it's in the computer already. It depends on, the supervisor, if they're going to dig their heels into things, or you can just exonerate the officer and just have it disappear because you know that the boss is just off base. I always told people, the bosses are not right because they're bosses. They have to be right on principle and they have to be right on policy.
anytime I got a CD, I would always talk to the supervisor that wrote it, just to make an understanding, like, what was your position on it? What were you looking to accomplish with this CD? Is there other factors that you may have been that brought in that you didn't write on the CD? Like what led up to it?
Yeah.
And if I thought it was BS, I threw it out. It's easy to exonerate. It's easy to to just get rid of. So that's what I did. Marlon, were you ever a recipient of a command discipline?
Yeah, for missing memo book entry when IB was at the traffic court.
Nah,
There was a time
yeah.
when you lost at traffic court and you didn't have an entry. You lost because you missed an entry. The IB would give you a CD with ridiculous measure when it came down.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they would give it that those command disciplines would come down with the penalties already on them.
Yeah.
And then we, as commanding officers, we fought with our union. We fought that's unfair, because in the patrol guide it never said that. In the patrol guide, the commander had the discretion that could be a recommended penalty, but it did not have to be adjudicated as such, that the commanding officer can take into consideration everything that they do, the disciplinary history, the work ethics of the member, and everything else. And then they changed the patrol guide.
Yeah. When it doesn't work for them, they change it.
Right.
Hey, Ron, Simply E at 1916 said, executive question: how would you address morale in a command at a time like this? That's a good question.
Very fascinating.
Listen, it's just, tighten up the bootstraps, hang on, and let's see where it goes. We took this job, and that's what I always tell people. You took this job for the right reasons. It's the people that are going to suffer. You have to do your job. You got to go out there. You got to protect these people. You got to try and do the right thing. I understand about being proactive. I have told this. I had this conversation many times on the podcast, on when I sat in on the Finest Unfiltered as well, that before I left, before I got hurt, and when things were going, all this bail reform and everything else, and criminal justice reform was coming into place, I went down and I sat down with Eric and his teams, Eric Dim and his teams in PSA 7, who are out there still every day taking guns off the street from very bad people. And I said, I don't know how you do it. I can't come down here in good conscience and ask you to go out and do this when everything is working against you. But it was just ingrained in them to go out and do it. But, as the boss, I encourage you to do the right thing. But I also changed my mantra when I used to turn out roll calls, because I used to go down and see the troops, and I used to go out to the different commands when I was a borough commander and just address the roll calls and give them support and show them that I was there for them. And I would tell them, first things first is just be tactically sound. Protect yourself tactically. And then I used to say, protect yourself administratively. You're getting paid to be on the job. Do what you have to do. Do the paperwork you have to do, so that the people in these administrative commands can't hurt you when they're looking at your paperwork. Do your paperwork. Do what you have to do. But first and foremost, protect yourself, protect your partner, protect the other cops, then protect the public. Right? And then I had to change that.
Yeah.
Protect your family. You have to be careful what you do in order to maintain and save your pension. And it's sad that had to be added.
I think James Dean, I don't know if you know him, he was CO with a 2-4, and then he ended up being a CO of ESU. He had a good saying. He goes, the waves come in and the waves go out. So the best thing to do is to ride the waves, if you can, So I think that's probably the best advice to raise morale. The other real quick thing I would say is, if anybody wants to leave the NYPD, I'll give them a really nice recommendation. So feel free to ask me.
Marlon, as a member, what would you want to hear from an executive at a time like this?
Well, I think they should come in and let them know that we can't make any changes immediately, but we're working on them right now. We have a new administration, and we're going to hear you out. and we're gonna look out for the best interest of the cop on the ground, and you know, the overall health of the department. And we're just basically to establish open communications and let cops know what's happening and what we're doing.
Yeah, see, there's a problem right there with people that you've worked for in the past. You shouldn't have to open the line of communications. The line of communications should be already open and established so that you have that rapport, so they don't think that you're just blowing sunshine up their ass. You know, you should. That's why I'm saying I used to go out to the roll calls, not when I had to, but just randomly, you know, and talk about things. So
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I also think it's the executive should be honest. You could go out there and say, listen, I don't agree with the current, police commissioner, the current mayor, and the administration, but we'll get through this together. Just be honest. Don't say, oh, the administration's good, the police commissioner is good, they're going to have our back. Maybe they won't. Maybe they will. But be honest, because that's what police officers need to hear. They need honesty. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm just as scared as you are, but we'll get through this together. And that's what I always say. You got to just be honest with them. And they appreciate that more. So Sleepy Joe asked a question at 19.
I already put this one up. We'll get that one next.
Oh my God. All right.
Sorry, I already popped it up. I'm not gonna take it down.
No, but you're way down already. You didn't go back. You didn't go back to the beginning. But all right, go ahead. I got Sleepy Joe after this.
All right, you got him on deck.
Yep.
All right. Is 1804 Banks a good friend of the podcast? Is school safety going to remain under NYPD with Mayor Mamdani? I don't know. I don't remember hearing anything in his policies or reading anything in his policies about school safety. Do you?
No.
I don't know where he feels about that, but again, I think we know that he feels that a uniform presence is an overbearing presence, and so I don't know. I mean, they're unarmed. They're under the NYPD. They were removed from school safety under the chief of department, which I agree with. From community affairs, rather, to the chief of department, which I agree with. But as far as taking them back away from the NYPD, I don't know why you would. But I don't know what his policies are. It's a good question. I don't know. And again, I don't remember hearing that during any of the debates, and I don't remember reading that when I read through his policies on his website.
It could easily get pulled in. I was gonna say it could easily be pulled into the Department of Community Safety. I'm thinking, but that's speculation right now because he hasn't said anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say he's gonna give them social workers. He's gonna put all social workers in there. This way, they get accustomed to social workers coming to their house later on in life.
Are you okay? How was social studies? How was social studies today?
That's it.
Oh,
you can't. Don't bring the gun in. You went through the metal detector with a gun. You have to bring that gun home. It's okay. Relax.
All right, what do you got for Sleepy Joe?
I got Sleepy Joe. He's asking executive question. What's up with those scarecrow highway cars doing random highways? Is that the cars where they park a car and pretend that they're in there? And that lasts for like a day, right? Then everybody realizes it's a BS highway car sitting on the side of the highway. And personally, I think there's a liability there because God forbid you get in an accident, you got somebody hurt. Somebody runs over there and thinks that there's a police officer that's going to help them. Call, I need an ambulance. And then there's a scarecrow sitting there. They used to put the dummies with the police hats inside their cars,
I laugh because this has been going on for so long. When I was younger, I used to drive down to my parents in North Carolina a lot. And in Virginia, on this one downhill, was it Virginia or Tennessee? Was it the Virginia or Tennessee? And there was always an RMP in the center median that you saw. And then when you roll up on it, you see the scarecrow with the hat, sitting there, and it's a plant. And the thing was there forever. But to be honest with you, it got me every time. I mean, the
You
locals
never
might
know.
know. The locals might know it's there, but anybody else traveling through, it got me every time. Every
Yeah.
time. You know, and then now it'll be on Waze. You know, police in a half a mile or whatever the case may be, and people are always going to put that in there. And that's the thing too, is where with Waze and everything else, it tells you where the police are. And I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to putting out these bait cars either. These scarecrow cars or phantom cars or ghost cars or whatever. I don't know what you want to call them. I don't know what they're called in the department lingo nowadays. I'm not opposed to it. I understand what you're saying, Rob, but it does slow people down. It does make people cautious. It does make people put in ways that there's a police car there, which is going to slow people down a quarter of a mile away because they're going to be approaching it and they don't want to get hit with the LiDAR or the radar or whatever the case may be. So I'm not opposed to it, and that's what it's for. It's to slow traffic down. But yeah, they got to move them around, and
And then cops in a command can't get a sector car, but they got cars sitting out on the highway, and then you got all the morons that jam their brakes on because all of a sudden they don't have Waze, and all of a sudden they see a police car there. It's like, oh my god.
I know we must be going. We're going real long because I just got a text from a very dedicated listener in the bloodline who said it's time for Survivor. I'll see you later.
Oh my god.
That still goes on.
Priorities. Your son's show or Survivor. But any other questions we got?
That's all I got.
Let me just scroll down to the end here. Let's see if I got anything new.
You know what the other thing with those ghost cars is? They sit there and they get dirty.
Yeah.
After a while, the car it's like an embarrassment. It's like you drive by that car, it's all full of mud and stuff. They should at least go out and wash it the next time before they move it and stuff. So I got MDRN Samurai, I'm sorry, says, what was your favorite command to work at?
Wow. That's tough. I was only at one command as a police officer before I went to narcotics, so that's unfair. I enjoyed being a sergeant. I think it's really tough. That's tough. Somebody else go. Let me think.
Well, for me, I mean, it's modern samurai. Sorry. I would have to say emergency service unit, and why? Because it was fun. We were always running around. The guys and gals there were great. They understood the job, and I tell you, it was the first time in the NYPD where people would come up to you. It could be police officers, it could be chiefs. They would come up to you and thank everybody that you did a good job. And for me, that was unheard of. I never heard I did a good job. So it was an enlightening time. And but I tell you the truth, every command that I was in, I had fun. And what makes it fun is the men and women that you work with. And that's the most important thing, So and you have to laugh. You have to kid around and laugh. Because that makes the job itself. Because we all know, there's a lot of funny things happen, and just the same reason why we love this chat, like TC and Sleepy Joe and Simply E, all of them have a great sense of humor, and the stuff they put in. That's why, Ron, sometimes you see me cracking up, right? Because I'm reading something in the chat. It's just the sense of humor that police officers have, and it's just amazing. They make it enjoyable. So
yeah, I mean, I had a great time in the 7-0. I loved being a sergeant in the 7-8. I loved the people I worked with in the 7-8. I was there for 3 years, but I did a lot of different things there. I have a affinity for the 7-8. Also, I was there during 9/11. And then I was an executive for 25 and a half of my 30 and a half years. So, you know, as an executive, I loved being a commanding officer of both of my commands. They were both very different, the 111 and the 110, but being an executive and being a commanding officer is a great privilege, and you love it, and you're so glad it's over when it's over because it's so demanding. But I think even as an executive, the place that I enjoyed the most when I was the commanding officer of the borough crime and the what's called the blast unit, the burglary, larceny, apprehension, suppression team, those guys did such an amazing job. The work ethic that they put out, the collars and the cases that they built as just patrol were amazing. The technology that we used was so much fun. We were GPSing cars and following guys and stuff. So it was a lot of fun working there. So it's tough for me. I came to enjoy almost every place I worked. I'll give the exception of candidate assessment. That was a grind every day. I really enjoyed a lot of the people I worked with there, but that was the toughest place I ever worked. But we won't go down that rabbit hole at all. Marlon, go ahead.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I had a very short career, as you guys know, but I love the FIO program, and I still do. And if I had a chance to have gotten my shield there, I would have never left and, you know, gone into intel proper. So if you're a young guy who's watching us right now, from my perspective as a cop, work your way to the FIO's office, and you'll have a lot of fun there, and you'll learn a lot there, and you have many branches to take your career from there, you know? So.
What's Hassan saying? I'm pointing at you like you're a skull. Is he trying to catch up to you?
Earlier when you were pointing at the QR code.
QR code?
If I was any closer, you would have poked me in the eye. Thanks, Hassan. I appreciate you looking out for me. King Gerbo has a question at what is it? 20:05 hours.
All right. I'll put Pete back. 1 second. We'll do two more.
All
we
right.
Gotta get going. Who is it?
King Gerbo.
Do you guys think there are too many female cops on the streets? Serious question. No. I listen. I have no problem if you're female, you're male, if you're feminine or masculine. I know John and Eric talk about the masculine traits of police work and everything else, and that's true. You need to be able to handle yourself. I have worked with some phenomenal female officers throughout the years. I could name some female officers that I would much rather be in an RMP with than some of the male officers I've worked with over the years. So unfortunately, you see some of the things that on the street where female officers are getting overpowered or whatever because they're not prepared to take care of business and do what needs to get done in the street. But there are males that we see daily and day out on videos also. So I'm not going to say that there are too many female cops on the street whatsoever.
You know,
I'm not for 30 for 30 where we have to really put more. We want to increase. That's a DEI thing, and we want to increase the number of female officers just for the sake of increasing them, not because that they're the qualified officers. I'm for putting qualified officers, no matter what you are, who you are, where you're from, on the streets.
See, the female officers that came into emergency service,
top notch.
They passed the same standards that everybody else did. So my thing is, if you can pass the standards, I would take 1,000 women as long as you pass the test and you pass what's required of you, and you get through it. Then I agree that they should be out in the street too. I have no problem with that at all. And believe me, some of the female officers in emergency service, I'd rather have them lead bunker than some of the guys. So I mean, they did a phenomenal job, and they weren't afraid to do the job. So no, I agree. It to me, it doesn't matter. You know, again, whatever sex you are, whatever color, creed, if you can do the job and you pass the standards, that's what has to be done. When we lower the standards, then I have problems with it. The standards should never be lowered. Marlon, what do you think about that?
No, I think you guys covered it. I agree 100%. You know, as long as you could do the job, you know, it
All right,
doesn't matter.
let's wrap it up with Peter Miller. Do you guys? I don't want Marlon to go down a rabbit hole with this one. Do you guys think the pensions for retired MOS are safe under Mandami?
Hmm.
I know Marlon's not going to agree with me. I think that the pensions are secure. I think that the pensions, the state is going to have to go under for us to lose our pensions. Is it possible? Nothing's impossible. Our pension system is structured differently than some other cities and other unions throughout the country that have lost their pension benefits or had serious declines in their pension benefits because of the insolvency of their municipality. So I'm not concerned.
Marlon, let me jump in before you. I'll say, because I'll say where there's a will, there's a way. And if they want that pension and they want to use that money, just like they change the investments into some of these social programs, they will do it. So I say there is no way that your pension is secure. I think that they can change things and they will if they want to. That's my personal opinion. So I don't trust them. No, I don't trust them at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna say this. We talked about it with Eric earlier this morning, but you should look up the terms real and nominal value, and your answer is there because the question is pension adjusted for inflation or in nominal value. So
I always thought the pension was a Ponzi scheme. Like how am I getting 8% when the economy was tanking and everything else? But I'm a guaranteed 8%. I says this sounds to me like they're just floating paper and showing me that there's an increase when there isn't. So I was always a little scared of it anyway. So.
All right, guys. Listen, Marlon, we really appreciate you coming on with us today. We appreciate your insight on things overall, and then obviously your expertise and your personal commitment and your personal attachment to the offer by, Mayor Adams on his way out the door. So we appreciate that. And thank you, everybody in the chat. Rob, final words?
Yeah, no, thanks, Marlon. Appreciate you coming on. I think it was kind of a little bit of a late notice, but you jumped on and helped us out. I really appreciate that. Hassan Mo is definitely going to command discipline. He wants to be my driver, so he's definitely getting a CD. And I'm taking 5 days, Hassan. But I appreciate everybody in the chat. I love the interaction, and thanks for everybody being with us today.
Marlon, before I close it out, anything?
No. Thank you, Inspector Ron and Chief Lukash, for having me on. It was a pleasure, and I think we had a great, very informative show. And thank you guys in the chat for joining us as usual. And have a great rest of the evening, and I'll see you guys on Friday.
Right. All right. So we'll do our usual. Appreciate everybody. 8311's back. We went so long. He went to meal and he came back. So we appreciate you, 8311. Oh, before we go, let me not forget this week. Okay. Let's put up the super chats. MD RN Sumore. That's a tough one, big guy. Worked with Rob in the 2-3. Great man. We appreciate it. $50 for the podcast. It's a lot of Twizzlers and Diet Coke. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Rob is a great man, so we appreciate him too. Class 8311, you're back from meal and you get your shout out. Totally disgusted with this bum. Got in yesterday, worried for the family on the job. Another great show with Marlon as a bonus guest tonight. We agree 100%. Still have 20 minutes to enjoy before I have to go 63. And now you're back. So we appreciate that. $9.99. Sleepy Joe, $10. Coffee and donuts for my favorite podcast. Appreciate you because we know that you watch them all. We're just going to do directeds every hour and drive around the block until meal, then repeat and go EOT. Yep. show these jobs being handled by SW Adams, social worker Adams. Good night, Central. Snake Plissken, always in the chat. Appreciate you. You guys are running on all cylinders tonight. Seth Lowe, what about $10 for podcast? What about all the officers that were terminated for false allegations and no evidence? Law firms have tons of those cases. Yeah, that has to go through a total different process. So there we have it. Really appreciate all of your input. Let me get rid of the banner. And so, yeah, tomorrow at 13:05, Sal Greco show, 1:05 p.m. on the Finest Unfiltered Network. Sal will be discussing the election results and giving you his take on it. Sal is, he goes deep in with the politics on what's going on out there. So Sal will talk about that, and then you'll see on Friday, Marlon will be back with John and Eric for the roundtable. Again, I'm sure they'll be discussing some more election results as well as what we discussed today, because it affects John too, and we'll get his take on whether his constructive termination will apply. And they'll talk about that Friday morning at 08:05, then be back on Monday for the regular show, talking about whatever's in the news and everything else that's coming on. Tuesday, Sal's back because he's Tuesday and Thursday, 1:05. Followed at 7:05 with the 10-4 Tavern, Tom Joyce and Pete Faselli. Another great show last night. Caught some of it on the way out to the watch party. Retired sergeant from Florida, from Coral Springs, Florida. She's a gold member family. I don't know exactly what you call it. Forget off the top of my head where she's a legacy family where her father was shot and killed when she was just a little bitty baby. It was touching. Tom was put up a video of her dad holding her in the hospital when she was born, and he was taken from us and taken from her like 3 weeks later. So that's the only memory she has, memorialized, and then a full family of service. So go back and watch that episode, 10-4 Tavern, Tuesdays, 7:05. And then next Wednesday, I'll be back at you next Wednesday. Rob's taking the night off. He's had enough of me, over 3 hours tonight. He says he needs a break. So, so Rob will be taking off tomorrow, next week. As of right now, I'm lining up an interview with a retired Lieutenant Detective Commander squad, and so he'll be on with us. It should be a good show. Lot to talk about with that, but he had a great career, and he's also on the board of directors with Officer Down Memorial Page, and he was the person behind NYPD in memoriam prior to his retirement, and then nobody else took over. So we're talking about that. That'll be next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for watching. We thank you for coming on, and we will see you in a week. Until then, be safe, everybody.